Reptoids: The Body Snatchers by Susan Reed, BSc. Contents: Foreword. 1. Introduction. 2. An Alien Experience. 3. Their Overall Plan. 4. What We Can Do to Stop You. 5. Colonizing the Earth with Their Hybrid. 6. Reptilian Entities. 7. Genetic Samples. 8. Debilitation Through Nutrition. 9. Financial Department. 10. Space Stations. 11. The Environment. 12. Other Reptilian Hosts Exposed. 13. Their Secret Weapons. 14. Viral Infections. 15. The Reptilian Anti-Higher Consciousness Agenda. 16. Crop Circles. 17. A Main Alien Race Reincarnating Here. 18. The Alien Race Known as the Nordics. 19. Rigging of Juries. 20. The Royal Family. 21. News Topics. 22. Education. 23. Control of the Media. 24. Changing Art. 25. Suppression of Architecture. Epilogue. References. 4. This will be my only book as long as I am left alone. Here are my 4 years' experiences. I have to write them or they will stop it by stopping me. One reptilian has already made attempts. This is why I have had to write it. The reason I wrote this book was to get rid of the reptilian entity I will call Etish. Etish was originally sent to me by the man I will call Brian. Brian is depicted on the front cover and was hosting a reptilian. Etish fell out with Brian and started working alone. I had some personal information on the reptilians that I had no intention of telling others, but the connection of Etish and his attempts to harm me, which went on for 3.5 years, meant that I had no choice but to publish the information in order to stop him. He was following a reptilian rule inappropriately. We stop people before they pose. But I wasn't going to expose them anyway, so he was quite ridiculous to have brought this about. His characteristic of I have to win no matter what was also partly to blame. The other reason that this book was written and published is that Etish enticed the overseeing entity of John of God, psychic surgeon in Brazil, to work for him. He enticed her with reptilian secrets such as one about karma and another an alien agreement. In exchange she joined forces with him against me. At the same time she wanted to help out against the reptilians and was instrumental in producing this book. The reptilian Etish doesn't care about the reptilian organization, only himself. Chapter Index 1. Introduction describes the human reptilian Brian and about his organization. 1. A. How it all began for me. 1. B. All about a reptilian host Brian. 1. C. Brian using me to get himself transferred out of Spain. 1. D. The human reptilian emotional problems. 2. About the human reptilian I have unique insights into exactly how a reptilian body snatches a human. He is a combination of a reptilian spirit in control of a human spirit having taken over a human body. His abduction is described, his remarkable abilities and characteristics such as advanced mental abilities and his cruelty and fundamental badness. Surprising for such advanced beings, reptilians when in a human body are immature, emotionally experiencing profound emotional hurt resulting in chips and resentments and also ego problems. Brian's are described. 2.1 Warrior draconian entity gone rogue spilling the beans on reptilian secrets and the information in this book, organizing his own removal. I will call him Etish for the purposes of this book. 2.2 The John of God Psychic Surgery Center in Brazil. Etish recruits help from there. 2.2 An increasing world belief in spirits. 2.2 Be John of God in league with the reptilian Etish. Etish recruits help / a book gets written. 3. Their overall plan. Identity cards will eventually kill us. Here Etish starts to talk. Selfishly he gave away some of their plans. They want this planet for themselves and in order to have it they must kill us off first. This will be achieved via an implant and they plan to implant everyone with a microchip. The implant will replace an identity card, the most likely route, or credit card. Right now steps are in place to remove money so that credit or money cards are our only option. 4. What can we do to stop them? Describes what we can do to stop them, such as finding out what is going on and not burying our heads in the sand, refusing their control mechanisms, using cash rather than credit cards, campaigning for credit card PIN and more. 5. Colonizing the Earth with their hybrid. Describes how they plan to colonize the Earth, having killed us first. They are developing a hybrid using human DNA. 6. Reptilian entities, talks here about them. 7. Genetic samples. Brian collects DNA samples, believe it or not, from women he seduces. He actually takes a brain sample at night when they are asleep. I describe how mine was taken. 8. Debilitation through nutrition. They reduce our intellect significantly by withholding essential nutrients from baby milks. Breast is best by far. Those who know are killed, such as a scientist that Etish describes. They harden our arteries with a toxic substance in a common food item, wheat. 9. Financial debt. They control the banks and money. They use the universal law of abundance to their advantage, making debt easy. Once in debt, we are more susceptible to negative influences and they can control us better. 210. Space stations. They are actually in the Earth's atmosphere. 11. Environment. They intend to live on the planet and are concerned about our environment. 12. Other reptilians exposed, naming names. Included are politicians such as Condoleezza Rice, bankers such as the Vanderbilts, famous actors including Tom Cruise, Emma Thompson and tennis star Virginia Wade, and royalty such as Princess Anne. 13. Weapons. 13. A. I have personal experiences of most of these weapons. 13. B. Weapon number 1 is used to kill and it appears as though the victim has had a heart attack, always at night, time of death 2:40 a.m. or soon afterwards. 13. C. Weapon number 2, lethal. Creates a stroke. A wavelength is used that transfers chemical, creating blood clots. 13. D. Killing in groups. Their London meeting takes place in the Royal Albert Hall as Freemasons. Opponents are killed using weapon No. S1 and 2. 13. E. Weapon number 3, non-lethal. Temporary effect. Suddenly out of nowhere you feel very disorientated, unable to function normally. A handheld device no bigger than a credit card is used to fire toxic energy substance. Usually fired from a distance. Could be used against public speakers. 13. F. Weapon number 4, non-lethal. Permanent effect. Causes general debilitation including depression, mind suppression, tension, and dullness. Given between the hours of approximately 12:00 noon until 10:00 p.m. There is a peak at approximately 3:00 p.m. The afternoons are the worst. Work outputs is reduced. 13. G. Weapon number 4A, mass toxic energy substance put in the atmosphere to suppress us all. Sent between the hours of 12 noon until 10 p.m. approximately. 13. H. Weapon number 5, non-lethal. Permanent effect. This causes anxiety resulting from harmful vibrations given into the body and a timer is involved. There is a break between 9:00 p.m. and 5:00 a.m. at night. 13. I. Weapon number 6, non-lethal. Temporary effect. Used at night at 2:40 am. Creates tension. 13. J. Weapon number 7, non-lethal. Permanent effect. Creates depression. Used on activists. 13. K. The source of some of their weapons is a machine attached at their space stations. 13. L. Harming using their minds. Visualizations. 13. M. Enhanced witchcraft. Black witchcraft combined with ELF radio wave enhancement. 14. Viral infections. They manufacture viral infections including shingles and I describe how I was deliberately given this by Steve. Other viruses are SARS, influenza, and HIV. 15. Anti-higher consciousness agenda. 15. A. Introduction. This is their hidden agenda. Raising our consciousness is our real purpose, which the reptilians do whatever they can to stop us achieving. As we raise our consciousness we become harder to control and will see what is going on. I was targeted for the contact details of a higher consciousness course I was doing called Luminescence. I am very concerned for their safety as they intend to stop this organization and have threatened to kill the founder. I also discuss how mankind's actions are helping the reptilians take control and that changes will reduce their control. 15. B. Targeting higher consciousness organizations. Etish discusses how they are targeting Buddhism, Transcendental Meditation, Hare Krishna, and now via me Luminescence, but they haven't done this yet and I am trying to prevent them destroying it. If they cannot stop an organization because it is too well known, then they infiltrate the organization, kill the founder, and an example is given of the killing of the Pancam Lama. 15. C. Additional help we are getting from the higher planes to attempt to counterbalance what they are doing. We are getting a lot of help from the higher planes such as beings the Pleiadians, from the star constellation, the Pleiades. There is more light around than there has been in the recent past, but we have to access it. Luminescence uses this. 15. D. Implants to detect people of a high vibration. 3. In order to detect such people, all reptilians except those who work in higher consciousness organizations have an implant. It feels like a terrible red siren is going off in their body. 15. E. A prison system. They're so advanced that they have spirit technology and are using this to imprison human spirits of a high vibration after death. They are attaching nets of fifth-dimensional machinery to take spirits to their prison pending destruction. This is outlawed by the overseeing council of us and the Dracos. This council is not aware that the Dracos are working on a means to destroy spirits using an explosion technique. I have this net. Although I am below their criteria, I am increasingly gathering evidence. These spirits are then stored indefinitely in a static force field next to their machines in space. This is happening worldwide and to 1 million people. It is fundamentally wrong as it leads to the destruction of the soul. It must be exposed. I have evidence. 15. F. How the reptilians locate people and attach the net. Very simply, they use town planning for street names and house numbers, the telephone directory, websites. I provide my own experiences. The reptilian being spirit has to be energetically present in order to attach the net. 15. G. A planned force field to trap us on the planet. The reptilians wish to erect a force field around the Earth. This has also been called a frequency fence by the Nibiruan Council. 15. H. A reptilian secret given away by Etish on a planned force field. A secret concerning the force field and an alien race who want to prevent it has been passed on by Etish to the spirit realm. 15. I. Etish gives away a reptilian secret on karma. Etish, in order to prevent himself being continuously held and for his own support by the spirit realm, actually passed on a reptilian secret about karma. This was an important secret that he gave away. Apparently they are adding karma and he spilled the beans. It is unbelievable that a reptilian would squeal like this, but as he was basically ousted from the organization and from Brian, he was working for himself entirely and anything that would get himself favors if he could get himself favored by them and would tell them anything. Very crafty to get the spirit realm thinking he is great. There was Etish freely giving away this secret as bribery to have the spirit realm do as he wanted. Here Etish explains how they work behind the scenes in our Akashic records, which is where our past lives are kept. They are able to erase our past lives to create karma. They are able to implant lives into our record that are someone else's in order to affect us negatively and create more karma. The end result of this is to prevent us raising our consciousness and be more susceptible to their harm. Etish has spilled the beans on this secret to the spirit realm quite recently for his own personal reasons. 15. J. Implants to reduce consciousness. Most of us have implants that they added 1 million years ago to reduce the consciousness. They have been around that long. 16. Crop circles. Some are real, some they fabricate. 16. A. The Roswell Incident. Discusses the Roswell Incident. All alien information they cover up so we will not believe it possible that an alien race is taking control of the planet. 17. Another alien race reincarnating here on Earth. Discusses how this alien race also is producing a hybrid, but they are peaceable and are helping mankind when they reincarnate as humans. They encourage environmental protection and higher consciousness. 18. The Nordics. Our ancestors bred with an alien race known as the Nordics and produced what we have today. This is covered up. 19. Rigging of juries. They sit on juries ensuring those they frame are jailed. Brian has done jury duty 3 times. 20. The royal family. For they are making Prince Charles unpopular through bad press in order to prevent him being king. 21. News topics. 21. A. Princess Diana's death. Their point of view is put forward that Dodi was the target in order to appease a close family member. 21. B. September 11th to bring about a war with Iraq. 21. 21. C. Wars. They create wars. 21. D. BSE. They are responsible. 22. Education. They write the curriculums to suppress our minds. In England, grammar is deliberately undertaught so that we don't have the writing skills to complain. 23. Media. They use this to distract us from what they are doing. 24. Influencing art. They undermine art as it is therapeutic. A reptilian artist is described. 25. Suppressing architecture. They control architecture. Ugly square buildings that suppress us are built over circular that would enhance us. Epilogue. We can stop them as they are working against the natural laws on Earth. Creation is easy and destruction requires effort of theirs. It is easier for us to control ourselves and harder for them to control us. This is a natural law. They have to work very hard to control us. The natural laws work against them. 1. Introduction. 20 to 21. Missing to a T, relishing pain. Telepathic with extraordinary mental abilities. I have seen him as a reptilian, although at the time I didn't know this is what he was. I am absolutely convinced and have lots of evidence. Not only that, but there were 2 reptilian spirits, his guides, attached to me for 3 years since getting involved with him. Now they have gone. They had been seen and identified by 20 entity removers. Here are my personal experiences of a man who is actually a reptilian. Now Brian is one of many such reptilians, and you will know the names and maybe no one personally. There are politicians and even heartthrob actors, other humans hosting reptilians. Yes, the reptilians are here and I am sorry to say doing rather well, but that can change. I'm talking here not about their physical form, an 8-foot green reptile with yellow eyes and an unpleasant smell, although they also are here and this is how they would appear elsewhere, but about their invasion in a different form. They have taken over human beings, and once taken over there is no going back for that human. Don't worry, it won't happen to you. There are special preparations they have to do first prior to you even being born. Taking over a human is the only way they can do it, as we mustn't know they exist. Secrecy is their power. They are of a different dimension, the 5th. Once you have read this you will find that their presence becomes very obvious in fact you will start to recognize them. That's why the government is like it is humans hosting reptilians and the reptilian is the one in control. You will never know it until you read this. Compare my descriptions to someone you see on television. Are they really who they seem to be, or are they as I describe, a reptilian? This is the body snatchers in its true sense, and you can spot them, and by doing so they can't operate in secret. I have unique insights that I have gained from 2 years' experience with a reptilian host, and found out exactly how a reptilian exists as a human, and that is not found elsewhere. I hope that by publishing this book 5 others will come forward who know what I know but have not understood it. I believe that I am exceptional in that I have come to understand in full one particular human/reptilian, and I have done it the hard way. Almost everything there is to know, I know. I think you'll find the book extremely interesting, and it will expose weapons and methods of harming that they do without us knowing about it. I provide unique insights into how they prevent us raising our consciousness. This is their hidden agenda. I was targeted for this very reason. Plus of course how they intend to Excuse the cliché, but it's true, take over the planet. I have been astounded by and felt very out of my depth with these reptilians. They are highly advanced aliens, and I have experienced their abilities and technology to be extraordinary, although they are fundamentally bad. They are masters of the mind and use all the hidden rules that affect us, such as the law of abundance. Although individually they are more powerful than we are, as a whole we so outnumber them that we have more power, and certainly we have the ability to remove them from this planet. Simple exposure will work. The term I was told for the draconian organization is the suppressive force, which is descriptive. They are also called the Illuminate, the global elite, and this is the Reptilians. They are a secret organization who is taking control of the planet without us knowing about it. They place themselves in positions of power, and they are also found in all walks of life, and there is a ground force covering geographical areas, and this was Brian's role. His area used to be Marbella, Spain, that he called his turf. He termed his organization the suppressive force because they are using techniques to suppress us all so that we don't realize what is going on, and so we are too caught up in our problems to even care. Suppression would mean suppressing our intellect as described under nutrition, suppressing our abundance as described under debt, suppressing our health as described under viruses and nutrition and the weapons that they use, suppressing our consciousness as described under anti-higher consciousness program, art and architecture. 1. How it all began and why I am writing this. I will start by saying a little about myself. I am a healthcare worker with a Bachelor of Science degree. I have worked in hospitals for 15 years. Prior to the events of 2002 I had no interest in aliens or conspiracy. I was living in Marbella, Spain, setting up my freelance work in doctors' clinics, and attending the government-run Spanish school. Here I met Brian, who was attracted to me, and we became friendly. I was originally unattracted to him. He is not that good looking. I then suddenly became very attracted to him. I couldn't understand it. Later I found out that this was due to his seduction techniques that he used on me and all the other women at the school. I think his ability to attract women was unusual. However, he pretended just to be normal. There were things that really didn't fit. I will later describe these. We then dated. During our time of dating, Brian told me who he really was, that he was working for a global conspiracy. He said he thought I already knew. I had no idea at all. This was how he told me. It was 2 months after we started dating. He had fallen out with me over another woman, and he actually fired one of his weapons at me. See weapon number 3. This was done at long range. This led to his cover being blown. I am a bit psychic and instantly knew that he was responsible. I confronted him. He panicked and used weapon number 1, see section 13, on me. This actually can be lethal, although Brian was 20 miles away at the time. I ended up in hospital and almost died. Brian was called and turned up at the hospital. Thinking that I was going to die, he told me everything. That he worked for a suppressive force that was a global conspiracy, and he justified it by saying that looked at from a higher perspective, bad is okay, and did I want to join them? No thank you. 3 neighbors had taken me to hospital and I had told them that Brian was responsible. When he found this out, and to this day I do not know how he did it, he removed the effects of the weapon. It was drawn out of my body. I have always admired him for saving me, although his motives were keeping himself out of jail. Well, I actually know that it was one of his guides who told him to remove the weapon, who I thank very much. We continued to see each other. I am not great at picking men. Unpleasant, mistreatment is the norm for me, although he had great charm and many seduction techniques. 6. I later found out that the real reason that Brian had been dating me was to find out about luminescence, a higher consciousness course I was doing that was fairly new and unknown to the Reptilians. See later my section on anti-higher consciousness. I left Spain after that and stayed in England. Then after a couple of weeks an attempt was made on my life. It was using a combination of enhanced witchcraft and weapons number 1. I'd fled to Finland. At this time, as well as trying this, Brian attached weapon number 4 and the horrendous prison system. This was before he made an attempt on my life. I managed to survive it all right. Unfortunately, the cords that are described in the prison system still remain with me and can be seen as red cords. I later made it up with Brian, believe it or not. I have a tendency to attract unpleasant men, and we dated on and off for a year. I did not want to go public with this information, but as I said in the prologue, I have absolutely no choice. Once you know something, they will try and stop you exposing it. I obviously had no intention of writing this book, but one of his draconian entities remained connected to me for 3 years. Using their rule, we stop those before they expose inappropriately, forcing me into this action. This was actually all his own doing. He's gone now at last, but I had to publish the book to get rid of him. Once it was published, he had nothing to stop, so he absolutely caused this book. Silly, he should be kicked out of the organization. He was self-serving, enticing a being named Shell to help him. She wanted the book written, so she wrote some of this book. Never mind him. Brian was not the one causing this book. He doesn't want it written. Look again at the prologue, please. I have a will with everything, and in this book will be increased in circulation if I need to use my will. However, the cause of my death will have been the John of God Psychic Surgery Center. And I must make it very clear that I would never in a million years commit suicide. I don't believe in it. I am also in very good health and am young. 1. B. All about a reptilian host, Brian. He lives a facade. There is no conspiracy or even political books in his house, and yet he knows so much. His persona is a jovial cockney, a term for a Londoner. He has a hidden strength and wisdom that didn't fit with his persona. He has extraordinary mental abilities. He was able to memorize long telephone numbers with ease. He was an expert on the computer, although he did not use this for his day job. His thoughts are stronger and clearer than other people's, and I was able to pick up his thoughts, although I am not telepathic. He even used advanced mental processes to seduce women. I know because he used them on me. Other women have had similar experiences with these reptilian hosts who are collecting DNA samples by having sex. I met one such woman. His abilities extended to such things as remote viewing, astral projection and mind scanning. All these abilities he disguised, even the way he spoke, which would change remarkably when he spoke to work colleagues. Basically, he was trying to disguise who he was so no one would know who he really was. He is extremely knowledgeable on all subjects, funny because he was uneducated. His eyes have a steeliness about them that was unexpected. Their steely eyes are quite a giveaway. One woman described to me eyes like one tombstones. He avoids talking about himself, and when he does it was always positive. He knew that what we say affects our lives. If we talk positively, it brings about positive things. He was paranoid about other people being psychic. I know he was frightened that they would discover who he was. My friend had a particularly hard time from him, for she was a little psychic. This is how I discovered what Brian really is. He isn't just human, he isn't just reptilian, he has two sides to him. This is what happened. Now I had my suspicions that he was more than human. The telepathy, the weapons, and the information he knew. But I was taken aback when I was visited by an alien being who chilled me to the bone. This is how it looked. It was transparent, only energy. It had circular patterns like florets repeated through most of its body. A head was visible, and there were hands or something that manipulated tools. I was terrified. There was an evil chill to this being. However, it had a high vibration as 7, though it should be good and loving. This was confusing. They are high, these aliens. It had a large body and the whole room seemed filled with it. It talked to me in Brian's voice, but in a more chilling way. It somehow made me feel that I had no power to prevent it harming me. Extraordinarily, there was a two-way conversation between this alien and the human host Brian in Spain, and the two Brians were talking in the same voice. This was evidence that there are two beings in one body. Orders were given by the host. Can't make sense of this. This was conducted telepathically. Let me now say what else I discovered about Brian and how I drew my conclusions. Prior to having met Brian's reptilian being, I had an experience with Brian's human spirit. He actually astral projected right into my body. He did this twice. I was in another country at the time and he came over via astral projection. Now I am normally ashy person with strangers, but with Brian in my body I started to smile at everybody, as Brian does when in the right mood. Everybody was included and I felt I had a great power to attract. He also spoke with me telepathically in Brian's usual voice. This was, I must say, quite a pleasant experience overall. I actually felt enhanced by Brian's astral projection. However, he played mind games to display his superior mind and harass me. I have concluded because of these experiences that Brian is a combination of a reptilian spirit controlling a human spirit in a single human body, and Brian has described this. They have body snatched a human but they keep the human spirit there. A worker in the Dulce underground base named Thomas Vore confirms this when he states they know how to separate the bioplasmic body from the physical body to place an alien entity life force matrix within a human body after removing the soul life force matrix of the human. The life force matrix would, I assume, be the spirit. I also have evidence that the reptilian and human spirits are technically joined at the mental level. Brian has in fact told me after the event I'm the reptilian and I just use him, the human. I ain't no human. Well, he's part of me, but he ain't me, you know what I mean, and they don't exactly coexist. It's more like the alien has overwhelmed the human, the reptilian is now in the driver's seat. And by this I assume he means the mind of the reptilian is in control. I deduce that the human spirit is needed to coordinating the body, which the reptilian can't do. How can this be possible? With spirit technology which they have. He tells me that the alien hijacked his human body when he was about 20 and prior to that he had been abducted when he was a teenager, and describes it as follows. I've been there, their spaceship, in person to have a few things tampered with. They hauled me up in some sort of beam. It stunk, they made sure I could breathe. It was a bit of a weird experience for me. I'd been a normal geezer and then there I was, it reeked. I can't say I felt great about it because I was human, wasn't I? I wasn't reptilian then. They looked URRRH, they were dressed alright. They couldn't talk initially, they can't talk, can't say a word, and then I became telepathic and I could hear them and they spoke with me in English. They enhanced my mind is fucking amazing now, and they nicked a few things, body specimens. And then they plonked me back in my bedroom. He has also told me that before he was born all his past life experiences had been removed, including any karma, and his implants, see section 15, had been removed. When Brian is trying to harm me I get a mental image of a wide jaw with sharp teeth, roaring in a blood-curdling way, a bit like a dragon as Andrew Hennessy has described. Brian tells me his alien physical form has a jaw without a nose, scales, eyes but no ears, is aqua blue but only in his own environment, but would appear a green color here. I have seen aqua blue reptilians which could be the color they are. It is over twice the size of a human and is very unattractive. They smell unpleasant. He says, our bodies are out of sync with the rest of us, we wish we didn't need bodies. The alien unattractiveness may be the reason he admires female beauty so much and expects very attractive girlfriends and is very critical of any imperfections. 8. You may wonder why I continued to want to be Brian's lover, but I had mixed reactions to him. When Brian shows himself as he truly is I am more inspired by him. My thoughts are, what does he want with lowly human me? Why doesn't he want others like him? They are so much better than me, for he is so much better than me. I actually felt honored that I was in his company. I suppose you could liken it to a human with a dog and the human hanging out with a dog. Well, the dog would think, what do you want to hang out with me when there are other humans to mix with? They are more than I am. It was like I was in the presence of a great master. I was honored and he made me feel, why should he possibly wish to spend time with me when other masters must be more interesting for him? So you see why I remained attracted to him despite the abusive things he did. Confusing to the T, I can assure you. I have always admired him. The combination of the reptilian and human host results in a person who I found to be both extremely harmful and a little helpful, with a desire to harm and help, but mainly to harm. I was harmed and also given a little help, although he tells me that I wasn't really helped, I just thought I was. He tells me that he does occasionally experience wanting to help those he harms, however the alien desire to harm overrides this, and that he would rephrase desire to harm into a mission to harm in order to keep you all fucking down. They actually are very helpful, but they don't want to help humans. He seems to be a combination of the reptilian qualities of cruelty, evilness, extraordinary mental abilities and human qualities of an undebilitated soul of kindness, helpfulness and joyfulness. So there is a Jekyll and Hyde scenario. However, the human, stripped of all its past life experiences, is immature. It too acts badly, knowing no better, and the reptilian can't deal with the emotions. He is extremely cruel, and evidence I have is his cruelty towards me. We were going out and he kept me subjected to some of the weapons, see later, when he could have so easily stopped them. I accepted this behavior, a flaw in myself. I have now realized the error of my ways. He openly displayed animal cruelty, cutting his duck's neck with a blunt knife and watched it slowly bleed to death for all to see. I am an animal lover and did what I could to help the duck. He didn't even realize that it was inappropriate. He has amazing success with women. Remarkable, considering he is not a good-looking man, or powerful, nor rich. He admires female beauty very much, and his expectations in this area go far beyond his own attractiveness, and yet all his girlfriends are very attractive. I was astonished. I believe the reason for this is the seduction techniques he uses. I experienced these seduction techniques and they involved advanced mental processes. One of them was images of him giving oral sex, actually, like a record replaying itself over and over again. I suddenly became very attracted to him, and yet I was always tense around him. His womanizing was rampant, above anything or anyone else I knew had ever experienced before, and his interests were only there until the women stayed the night, and once this was achieved he completely lost interest. And it wasn't just the sex, because sex during the day would be pursued further. It was actually the collection of DNA samples. This was one of his duties, the collection of DNA samples when the women was asleep. Mine were taken along with many of the women I knew. I met a woman in California who had been involved with a man just like Brian. She was scared of him. He was a rampant womanizer, but gay with tomb-like eyes and psychic attack. They must be operating worldwide. Once his initial seduction ends, I found him to be negative about humanity. He hated the Spanish. He would constantly pull me down with phrases such as "you're hopeless." I was never any good at anything. He became a bully, unpleasant and critical, and yet my attraction persisted. He wasn't actually very nice but put on an act. In conclusion, Brian had characteristics that are compatible with humans. These are helpfulness, intelligence and rational thinking, a high vibration, wisdom. These are very attractive qualities, and I was very attracted to him, and all people will find this attractive. This is where it ends. The rest of Brian's character are completely incompatible with humans and are so destructive that any human should not get near any of these reptilians. There is their evil nature, and there is no changing it. They are the most evil beings imaginable, and they won't think twice about treating anyone in a most evil way. They may help them too, and this is so confusing. Humans and reptilians do not mix. Humans are not equipped to handle their evil power. They are so evil that they will relish anyone's pain, and would inflict it if they could. It's like a thrill to them, pain, and the worse it gets, the more thrills they get. They are like the eye of a whirlpool of evil, the power at the center that is pungent with evil. Like the eye of a hurricane, but the eye is the power point. They are what the Bible describes as Satan. The worst horror film would not succeed in getting across the intensity of evil that is them. We are their enemy, and as such we are to be destroyed. No matter what help they appear to give, all they desire is our destruction. Brian once said to me that he hated all humans, as that is how reptilians see us. I believe that those people who have had positive experiences with reptilians have only dealt with the small portion that we are compatible with. See picture. Diagram of the characteristics of a reptilian. Humans are compatible with their helpful portion, incompatible with their evil portion. They may have been useful to the reptilian, and because of this use the reptilian has not shown its evil parts to this person. We must understand reptilians are not to be known. They are not part of our interaction that we as humans desire for growth. We mess with reptilians and we end up destroyed. They are not us and not anything we need to understand. Brian's team. Brian did not work alone and had a team of 5 reptilian entities working with him. These entities were of varying development, and the more developed they were, the more helpful they were. the Draco being the highest and the most helpful one. C. Brian using me to get himself transferred out of Spain. Brian hated Spain. He had been positioned there not by his own choosing. He was always complaining about Spain, how he hated the climate, he liked rain and it was a sunny climate. He didn't like the sea, it was a coastal resort, and he hated the Spanish. It seemed very strange that he was living there. Also, he couldn't get his work off the ground, the day job that the organization made him do for his cover. He would always talk about Germany and how much he liked it. Funny why he wasn't there, but I was used and he got there. He 10 was transferred as a direct result of something he made me do. He actually made me write a newspaper article about him for the local press. In fact, in his own words, he said, "If you write an article for the press, I'll leave you alone." I had left Spain and had no intention of coming back, and for this reason I suppose he had to come up with another way for me to be a threat to him in his job in Spain, totally unfair on me. This was how he managed to do it. I had been living with Brian for a few weeks, we were trying to get along again, and Brian ended it and turned on me. I instantly left Spain, but Brian pursued me out of Spain using a reptilian colleague in Lyon. Then out of a job in Rochfield, England, again using a colleague there. I had not told a soul about Brian for 18 months, nor had I any intention of doing so. I knew I could stop him by going public, but I didn't want to do it. Instead, I just kept avoiding him by moving at considerable cost to myself. I had pleaded with him on the phone, he wouldn't stop. But he told me how to stop him: write an article for the Marbella press and that will stop me. This may seem surprising, but Brian knew that this would get himself transferred out of Spain. I didn't want to do it. I sought refuge in America, and he even got a colleague near Middletown, California to find me and then try and harm me. I had nowhere else to go and backed in a corner. I did what he said and the article was written. I emailed him at offering it to him for being left alone. He wouldn't and told me again the press needed to publish the article and let him know how I got on. So I sent it off to the press, told him, and then he left me alone. He was transferred directly as a result of this. He had obviously used my article to justify him leaving Spain. I do not know where he is now. I was not even going to go back to Spain, so I suppose he had come up with another way of me being a sufficient threat that he would get transferred. 1. D. The human reptilian emotional problems. Reptilians are aliens with no emotions and experience difficulties in this area when they take over a human. This is particularly the case to novice reptilian hosts such as Brian, who is not even a Draco. Dracos are their superiors. He has described himself as an emotional toddler. He was very immature and he had developed a large emotional chip on his shoulder, which others commented about. He told me I get the humans, emotional stuff, don't I, which is a bit of a pain. I'd rather not have it. It makes me do things I shouldn't do, like harm women I'm seeing, you know. He has an enormous ego. He told me, I've got an ego and it gets in my way. I push too far and don't let off when others would have saw reason. My feelings are I want to get that bitch. I want to squash her down. I get blinded and can't see reason. My ego blinds me, it makes me want to strut my stuff. I can't have no women get the better of me. Your father, he was harming him. -1 needed to build up a bit of credentials, to show I was working. Fucker, why should that women stop me? Here is what Brian also said, A-1 haven't got to grips with it yet. Emotions, Q, you hide your emotional hurt and just seek to harm those who hurt you, but a normal person would not be hurt by what they did to you. You're overly sensitive and hurt too much and then disguise it, so unless someone you are dating is intuitive they won't have a clue what you're going through. What about your fellow aliens? Well, some of them are more advanced than me, have been here more times basically, and so they know what to do. They are Dracos. Q, do they get hurt like you do? A, some are like me and some of them are better, but we ain't advanced emotionally, that's for sure. You've, me, got it under wraps and we ain't, so I wouldn't mind a few more like you coming my way, and that ain't important. 11 Q, why is it not important? You've been harming people your lot wouldn't normally harm. Girlfriends and the like. Well, I don't see it that way. I get a bee in my bonnet and I have to get me own back. Q, "But aren't you risking being discovered?" Well, yes I am, but I don't like being told, it pisses me off, so I'll think I'll get her anyway just because I can." 2. An alien experience. How Brian's reptilian side harms. This is how I discovered how Brian attaches implants and weapons. I was in my home, I had come to an agreement with Brian and we were friends. I had not expected any harm from him at all. I was alone and it was evening. It turned out that the draconian entity, see Section 6, had lied as usual to Brian, telling him that I was about to run away from him to another country. This was not true, but had angered Brian, working as usual on Brian's love life hurt. It was at this point that I had the strangest experience of my life, and one that leaves me with no doubt that Brian is an alien, or at least half of him is. I did not know at this point that what I saw was reptilian. It was certainly alien and made me look at people ever after in a new light, as comparatively they are harmless, soft and lovable. Even the nastiest human imaginable compares favorably to what I saw. It was in the evening around 8:00 p.m. when Brian's reptilian being entered my living room as I have described earlier. It began to try and attach weapon no to me. Its head was focusing on what it was doing and I could almost make out what may have been hands trying to make the attachments. There was no pain involved but a definite physical sensation at the points it was working at. It somehow made me feel that I had no power to prevent it harming me. Fortunately, in preparation I had made a protective garment. I knew that there was a material that would prevent this. This material is rubber. So I had made a rubber cloak out of bath mats. Yes, this is all I could find. I had searched high and low. I flung it around me, my head I protected and my upper body. This was all. I lay on my bed clutching it to me. I had planned to travel to Spain to see Brian the next morning. I told this being, Brian, and he did not believe me. He thought I was leaving him. As I said before, the entity had lied to him. Even now Brian wouldn't believe what I said. The entity really is extremely deceptive. I lay on my bed and he tried to make me move by stimulating my bladder. He took pleasure in my distress. I tried not to be afraid as I felt this only encouraged him to do worse things. Eventually I had to go to the toilet. I was so quick he didn't catch me. I then ran into the living room and lay on the floor. He was on me again behind my head and I tightened the cloak around my head, making a breathing hole. I could still hardly breathe and had to keep coming up for air, very, very quickly, gasping for breath. He started to find ways in. There was a tickling sensation beginning at a gap in the rubber and then it would trickle down to my shoulders, constantly trying to get to my shoulders. How could it do this? The gap was minute. What was he using? It seemed to be able to find my body and ran like water through holes. It was a slow movement, like he was manipulating it. I kept moving the gaps in the cloak and it would stop cutting off his access. This we kept doing for hours, all night. I lay deathly still and I had to stay like this, as I knew the consequences of his implants were not anything I wanted. I opened the cloak and gasped for air at frequent intervals. I tried to meditate and keep the fear at bay. Panic would make me need more oxygen. At about 3:00 a.m. something happened that made me understand more about Brian. Brian, as this reptilian being, started to talk to the host Brian in Spain. It showed that there were two beings in one body and one of them was with me and one of them was in Spain. Human host Brian was apparently up and he had something 12 in store for me. He used one of his weapons on me that I had received many times before. I am unsure as to what it is. See weapons. It felt like a very tense energy that was sent to my abdominal area. It continued for about 30 minutes. It went directly around my body and somehow got under the cloak. I knew from previous experience that this weapon will dissipate and the effects wear off. This time the rubber prevented this happening and I became tense. Nevertheless, I didn't move. This was actually really strange, having two Brians doing different things. Then the doorbell rang at 5:00 a.m. for my flight to Spain. I had to let it go. The taxi rang again and again, obviously thinking I had overslept. It tore me in two to let him down. I'm very conscientious. Rigidly Brian remained fixed on implanting me. This came about because he has to win, a characteristic they all have. He had to harm me. It didn't matter what I said or how long he had to wait. He was with me 9 hours constantly attempting to harm me. It got to the point that I was suffocating and had to slow down my breathing in order to not have to move. Brian became different in this situation. A side of him came forward and it scared me and made me feel as though I would never succeed, he would always win. I wonder if this is some mind technique he was using as well. I started to realize that I needed to appear the loser. I am not good at this. I didn't succeed. He was unbending and unlike anybody I had met, alien that's for sure. I believe they are warriors and this have-to-win trait helps them win over others who are less intent on winning. They will harm themselves if it means they win. Brian has demonstrated this trait throughout his attempts to harm me. Rationality, and they are normally extremely rational, goes out the window. They are able to stop this when they are observant that it is happening, but Brian wouldn't listen to me or his reptilian entity. They are prepared to harm their organization in order to win hands down over me. As they get more superior within the organization they lose this and act purely rational. Brian had actually set himself a time limit, but this didn't matter. It passed and I prayed that he would leave. I was out of luck and yet again he spoke with human Brian in Spain. He wanted to know whether he could keep at it and human Brian allowed him to. I could hear the conversation they had. How could there be two Brians and why was the one in Brian's human body in charge? I was dismayed. He wasn't going to go. It was now 7:00 am. I had been lying absolutely still, hardly able to breathe for 10 hours. I couldn't do it anymore and I decided to run. I had an idea, and what I had learned is that this being cannot see physical things, only energy. He sees what I see in my mind. I started to move and yet pretended I was still. It worked, he didn't notice. I then ran down the stairs grabbing my already packed suitcase and out the door while pretending I was still lying down. He didn't know what I was doing. I ran to a taxi and straight to the airport and took the next flight out. I had left my house in a state and a viewing was booked the next day, as it was on the market. I didn't care. I didn't go back to my flat ever. I was very upset about being forced out of my home. I've concluded that the reptilian being actually comes over to the person and actually attaches the weapons or cords. The reptilian can travel vast distances such as Spain to England to do this, however there is a distance so far beyond that they can't reach you. At one point I believe Brian the host was asleep when the reptilian visited, so it seems that the reptilian doesn't need to sleep and can leave Brian's body during the sleeping hours. 2.1 Warrior Draconian gone rogue, spilling the beans on the reptilian organization's secrets and on the information in this book. Here are my personal experiences and I was very much cheated and therefore I am writing this. For 2 years I had reptilian entities attached. A male and a female. I will name the male entity Etish for the purposes of this book, although this is not actually his name. I also refer to him as the rogue reptilian. I only found out about the female via Etish. They had been sent by Brian on his orders. They were initially fooling me into thinking they were helping. I wanted them there, they were my helpers. I believe they were against Brian when all along they had been giving him my location. They were there as spies, like I'd been bugged. Brian always happened to know my location and I had no idea how. So for 2 years I accepted these entities, not realizing that I could remove them. I hadn't known that Etish had been creating the conflict Brian had with me. He had been lying in order to turn Brian against me, playing on Brian's emotional hurts, and there were many. He is the only reason I fell out with Brian. What I learned from the reptilian entity was far more than I should have done. He gave much away. Here are some of the things. He is a large entity and attaches at the back. Used to be in the reptilian army. Now a helper of Brian. Same rank as Brian and therefore giving away that Brian is also part of the reptilian army. Exposed his female reptilian companion and Brian, and now both of them rejected him. So he is now enemies with Brian. Enjoys harming humans. Seeks power and too much for his rank. Feels superior to humans, hates all humans. Branton describes a worker in Area 51 talking about a reptilian they had to kill. Reptilians hate humankind with a passion. They only want to see humankind dead. The hatred these beings have towards humans is incredible, and they will do anything to destroy the human. Held in captivity, they will take every possible advantage to kill a human, therefore they had to kill it. This describes this reptilian entity exactly. Breaks agreements on less future consequences to himself. His presence goes unnoticed when under orders and is not unpleasant. He fed back information to Brian such as my address. Has a have-to-win trait even if cuts off his nose to spite his face. This would help as a soldier but could also be a flaw as not rational. He is a liability to his organization, works for himself only. Now his has-to-win characteristic has meant that he has actually exposed reptilian information to win himself, not only to me but to the spirit realm. Breaks agreements on less future consequences to himself as he broke his agreement with me, hence this book mentally works very differently to humans. He plans A, B and C all going fully at the same time, predicting future probabilities, extremely clever. Works on logic but has-to-win characteristic makes him illogical. Was a physical reptilian 3,000 years ago in China as part of the army. Experimented on humans, including sex for genetic research. Had a slave girl who would go out find humans for their experiments. They were masquerading as gods. This is a past life of his that has been found to be implanted in my etheric body. Looks up to winged dragons and would want to be likened to a dragon. I assume therefore they are his superiors. Thinks he is one. Says he is expecting a reward from the reptilians of a hybrid body when they first colonize the Earth, has described this to me. He said he would be the first lot there. 14 His attitude changed when one was staying in a community. He had decided that he wanted to no longer be attached to me, and he had a plan that would mean he would leave me. It involved me contacting the reptilian organization. I knew someone else who was a reptilian host and I wanted to contact him for help from the bullies of Brian and this reptilian. I wasn't safe to do so. I had entities, but the reptilian knew how I could do it. I had to make myself safe by getting the community to half believe my experiences, and so if I was harmed and had described it before, they would fully believe it. I had to write a book and tell the community I was writing a book on reptilians and give them information on Brian and tell as many people as I possibly could. He pushed me into doing it and I was successful. I hated it. Brian was kept completely in the dark. But I ran out of time and had to leave early. But the book began then, and all these conversations are Etish working on favors for his removal. I'll give you information if you help me get removed. I only work for myself, and as long as I am in power, 1C don't care what information I have to give out to get others to help me against Brian, who rogue reptilian hate. Organizing his own removal and exposing Brian. This is how Etish organized his own removal. Out of the blue he went what I would call rogue. He had stopped following orders and now had his own agenda to get himself removed. The worm had turned against Brian. He had decided that he'd had enough. He became like a gremlin, making me hate his presence. He told me what to do to remove them and organized it. I went along with it, promised a complete freedom from him. At the same time he turned against Brian. I couldn't believe it. He wanted me to tell others about Brian, to expose Brian, but I wouldn't do it. He also told me about the reptilian organization's rules for conduct. I contacted Brian about what was going on and it wasn't him, was the response. The entity organized me seeing many entity removers. He told me exactly what to do, to communicate with a large number of entity removers at exactly the same time. This was his technique of powering the request by all reading it at the same time. He was also using the reptilian method of throwing the net far and wide, having many possibilities. He made me see a lot of entity removers. He certainly insisted. They all saw the entities and most identified them as alien, many as reptilian or Nephilim, a biblical term. He was very forthcoming, saying that he was a reptilian, that he hated Brian and that Brian was a human reptilian and had sent him. He very willingly dished the dirt to anyone he could about Brian. It struck me that they had obviously had a major falling out and he was trying to get his own back on being forced to stay. He was very spiteful. Keeping the reptilian agenda secret didn't seem to matter to him while he was in this frame of mind. He was quite a spectacle. After 4 weeks of him making me see entity removers, it had become obvious to anyone that I had reptilian entities. If in doubt, they now knew. Here are some of the remarks from entity removers. He wanted me to harm Brian and told me some rules as follows. The organization's rules for conduct as follows. 1 Golden rule, do not do things for personal gain. 2. We never fire weapons for personal gain because they are expensive. 3. We conceal ourselves. We never expose anything that we don't have to. 4. We don't draw attention to ourselves by acting cruel, spiteful, harm people. His intentions were to make Brian change his orders and say he could leave me, but this tactic didn't work because I didn't comply. I discovered that he had been listening to road names and house numbers all along when he made it very obvious. 15 The entity then made me go to entity removers. He told me exactly what to do, using techniques of communicating with a large number of entity removers at exactly the same time, of throwing the net far and wide. -1 was to see a lot of entity removers, he insisted. He told them that he was reptilian. They all saw the entities and most identified them as alien, many as reptilian or Nephilim, a biblical term. Those who also use hypnosis had an interesting time, as I was shocked that under these conditions he was able to come to the forefront and talk through me to the therapist. He told several entity removers how he hated Brian, that Brian was a reptilian and had sent him. He very willingly dished the dirt to anyone he could about Brian. It struck me that they had obviously had a major falling out and he was trying to get his own back on being forced to stay, very spiteful. Keeping the reptilian agenda secret didn't seem to matter to him while he was in this frame of mind. He was quite a spectacle. After 4 weeks of daily communications with entity removers, it had become obvious to anyone that I had reptilian entities. If in doubt before now, they knew. Here are some of the comments from entity removers. When I carried out your scan, I found an imposing reptilian being, with another one hovering in the background. Entity remover M. There are 2 entities and a man that you are connected to. Entity remover C. I see a towering reptilian behind you and a smaller reptilian to your right. Entity remover M. I see red, which shows me that they have been sent. Entity remover D. The one I can't deal with right now is actually one of the Nephilim responsible for this planet. Entity remover J. I identify them as Nephilim Exorcist C. Here is one of the spirit removers sessions that was taped by the hypnotist. The reptilian cheated me and therefore I am including this. It begins at, hypnotist, what can I do for you? Etish, I've done this before. And you are going to write it all down, and I am not meant to be doing this because I am not meant to be here. You are not meant to know I am here. Hypnotist, but I do know you are here. Etish, yes, but you are meant to be in 2 minds. I am not meant to be like this, I'm meant to be in the back seat. Hypnotist, how exactly can I help you? Etish, I want you to get me out of this situation. I want to be released, but not by my own choosing. I want to have you force me out, but you see I can't even say this because there is someone else here who hears what I say and will be in a lot of trouble if they report me, so Miss Wise, to do all of this I cannot. He asked the hypnotist to force him out and described exactly how to do it using out, and was going to get him in trouble with the reptilian organization if he did. I was therefore being made to do it. He actually asked for her removal first. Said how exactly she could be forced out using 4 or more spirit guides that would physically take them. That harm to him was needed. He was a battle man and had to appear to be resisting. That he was alien and that reptilian was not what they called themselves, and he told the hypnotist their real name, but into his mind. That they hear what we say. Needs my street address to send entities. They are 16 working for Brian, who is the real problem, that Brian is possessed by a reptilian. Brian had sent them and is harmful. They are alien and do not go to the light. I had not known there was a female until this time. She disagreed with his decision to leave me because Brian had ordered them to stay and they were subservient to him. Therefore the male reptilian was doing a trick, making out that I had removed them with force in order for it to be okay. He wouldn't be in trouble if had got them removed. It's complicated only because he was not allowed to leave. And what this trouble was interesting. He had been promised by his organization a reward that he could lose this for disobeying orders. Hypnotist, okay, so you want me to help release you? Etish, yes, but not releasing, moving. Hypnotist, and keep you out of trouble. Etish, that's the problem. My wife, My female, my mate. I will be in trouble by her. She will report me. I have to be made to go. Hypnotist, your controller? Etish, she isn't normally my controller, but right now she has got the thumb screws on me because you see I am in the wrong. I will be in trouble. I cannot go. I am not allowed to go. Hypnotist, how can I protect you from her? Etish, I will do that. Move her first and then I can just go and she won't know. We just have to be removed. It's no big deal. It's so easy, so sort of easy, and yet somehow it seems to be so hard to do. I think you are not used to us because we are not normal, like we are not the easygoing human souls that you normally have, and I have to be forced, but force is not something you like to use, because it seems like you are harming. Hypnotist, you make false assumptions about me. Etish, I am assuming you are like the others. He had made me see about 15 entity removers previously. Hypnotist, we think we are dealing with Earthbound. Etish, they treat me as though I am Earthbound. They treat me as though I want the light. I want to go and do, but not there. There are ways to remove us. I know how it can be done. And do you have spirit guides that can work with you? Hypnotist, yes. Etish, have they got some physical presence here in the room? Because I am here in the room, and if they are here in the room they can try and move me, but I will have to resist a bit because she is watching me. Hypnotist, I will invite the guides here and they have the ability to forcibly remove you. Etish, oh, that will be so good. Hypnotist, are you a captive? Etish, I'm not captive. I am here by my own free choosing, but I have chosen to stay. That is the 17 truth. Hypnotist. Shall I now release you? Etish, well, your spirit guides will release me. You cannot in yourself, but your spirit guides can, but there have to be more than one or two. More than that I may. I'm a large I'm large and I'm hefty and I have to be forced, but they have to be strong. They have to be more in number than one or two. Hypnotist, I'm inviting the guides here who know how to do large entities. I'm inviting them to take no action against you that will harm you. Etish, I know I must be harmed. I am a battle man. You see, harm is no harm at all to me. I have to resist a bit, and otherwise if they do not try and harm me they cannot get rid of me. Hypnotist, I understand. Hypnotist, before I instruct them to remove you I need to know what you are and where you're from. Etish, I am not human. Hypnotist, I can't hear you. He was now whispering so that the female reptilian would not hear what he said. These entities can actually hear what their victim verbally says. Just like is the case for spirit guides. I had wondered why it was not until I spoke of my address that Brian knew where I was. Well, as soon as it was overheard it was passed on. Etish, I am not allowed to say these things. You see, Hypnotist, as a species what do you call yourself? Etish, I can tell you, but Miss Y must not know these things. She has a name and that name must stay with her. I mustn't tell her. The name I had was Reptilian. Etish, I can tell you into your mind. Pause as he tells him. He telepathically told the name to the hypnotist. Hypnotist, tell me when you are ready to be removed. Etish, I am ready every day, every moment, every day I am ready. It is too far for me to go home, and my true home is not here. I will tell you something about my home. Hypnotist, please. Etish, okay, I'll tell you now. I just don't want her to hear. She's a reptile, but that's only a name we use. It's not our real identity, it's just a name that you think we are. I later found out they are called Draconian, which is their name for what we term reptilian. Hypnotist, can you speak louder? Etish, then I am more limited in what I can say. You see, I am overheard. Hypnotist, that's OK. Etish, please accept that I will not be saying everything that you want me to say if I say it out loud. Perhaps you can come a little closer maybe, or I can whisper louder. Whispering is better for me because it is overheard. There is a female here. Hypnotist, OK. Etish, if she is gone I can just leave. She cannot tell. She's weaker than I am. She's easier to remove because she is smaller. His plan became the removal of the smaller female in order to free him to leave. The female was actually the nicer of the two. Hypnotist, I will ask the guides to remove her. Etish, she has been removed before. 3 spirit guides removed her and she was gone completely, and if that was done then I could go. She came back only after a few days and Miss Y went back to where she was living. If she doesn't go back to where she knows then we cannot find her again. We have to find her via address. We find her via her house address and Brian finds her for us. We are operated by a human and he's not a human, he's the problem. Brian, do you hear what I say? Hypnotist, yes. Etish, because I can say more this way, you can hear me, I can say. You see, I have been sent here. And he's a human, but he's not real a human, you see, because he's possessed. Brian is a reptilian as you think of reptilians. He's harmful and sent me, and he sent her too, and he, hypnotist, I invite the guides to remove these two entities. Etish, I want to say one thing, can you ask them to remove her first, then we know where we stand, can they try her first? Hypnotist, are you aware of her presence? Etish, yes, she is here, she is like I am. She is not connected to Miss Y, she does not have the physical connection that I have with Miss Y. I didn't even know she was there until he told me. Hypnotist, I invite the guides to remove this female entity. Etish, I would love it. L. Can you just ask them to physically force her out of Miss Y's energy? Hypnotist, the risk we run is if she is simply forced out, she will remain hovering around. Etish, they may restrain her for some time until Miss Y has left here. She will not know where Miss Y has gone, but Miss Y will have to move. Hypnotist, she is to be prevented from causing harm and interfering with people who have free will. Etish, she won't do that, she is basically Brian's helper, she helps him, and she does not normally attach to people. He is using us in a role that we were not intended for, this is why I am not happy doing it, he is using us, we are not meant to be doing this, we are helpers, not this. She will not attach to anyone unless he tells her to. They are the equivalent of spirit guides, as human have human spirit guides. Brian had reptilian spirit guides. Hypnotist, it occurs to me that there are several of you that have been coerced into doing something that you really don't want to do. Etish, yes, there are 2 of us. There were more, there have been 3, there have been 4, Miss Y once had 4 or 5 of us, but now there are just 2, which is better because that way we can be removed easier, but Mr. X will send more if he gets a chance. I know he will. I had been unsure of the number of reptilians I once had. Hypnotist, so what would happen if the entity, the reptilian that controls Brian, were to be neutralized? Etish, if Brian were out of the picture. That is something that you or me can't do, I'm afraid. I would love to stop him. Well, he is a powerful man, he is not around anyway. Miss Y does not know where he is. He is out of the picture. This session was unsuccessful and the entities were not removed. However, with the method of removing them explained here, I went on to remove them with a different entity remover who in fact used 6 spirits to move him. As had told me, using several spirit guides to force them out, a way that works, simpler than I thought. There are lots of mediums that have access to spirit guides and who could be used for this purpose. Reptilians do not act like earthbound spirits and cannot be removed without force. I hope it helps others with reptilian entities. I was pleased that he instructed me on this and organized it. However, he cheated me staying connected after his removal. He was held and still stayed connected. He had promised me complete freedom from entities. I did as he asked and he lied. He was hiding from Brian. For the next year he maintained a connection with me by using a spirit helper named Shell, who was in fact an angel. Brian had first used her. The ridiculous thing was that Shell would work against the reptilians and the reptilian entity would condone it all. Shell wrote much information, would force me into emailing people about what I knew. He didn't care just so long as he believed he could lie himself into a reward from his organization at the end, putting the blame onto Brian for anything exposed. Later he got into his head that I was going to have to complete a book and started using the reptilian tactic of we stop those before they expose. He became greatly harassing. I was forced to complete a book just so he didn't have anything to stop, a book I had no intention of ever writing before. So his inappropriate use of the we stop those before they expose rule brought about the book. As I will say many times, he is a complete liability. As I said, he was removed from me. He was held for 2 years by the spirit realm. He was very worried about being held for 50 years, and in order to stop this and for his own lust for power, he gave the spirit realm the reptilian secrets I heard on Karma, and I was told he gave a secret away on how they are breaking an agreement with an alien race and others probably that I didn't hear of. He doesn't care less about his organization, has been ousted, and wants the human spirit realm to support him. He gets carried away with his have-to-win characteristic that it becomes a great flaw for his organization. Anyone that will support him gets given information. 22.2. John of God Healing and Psychic Surgery Center in Brazil. I went on a 2-week healing tour to this center. Etish at this point was being held in the spirit realm. Obviously he was in hiding from the organization. Rather than healing me, an entity from the center attached to me on my way home. This entity's name was Mary Magdalene and was the overseeing entity of the center. She had a powerful presence and believed I had discovered a secret of theirs. Disgracefully, rather than healing me, Mary Magdalene was enticed by the reptilian to work for him. He would give away reptilian secrets and information to her in exchange. They made plans together to get Brian in trouble, with lies that would blame Brian for what the reptilian entity had caused. She at the same time as working for him was working against the reptilian organization and caused this book. Lies were going to be told. The reptilian entity had caused the secret about karma to be discovered by the spirit realm, but they were going to blame Brian. The reptilian entity gave away other secrets to Mary to entice her to work for him. She worked against me, harassing me greatly, whilst all the time she herself worked against the Reptilians. 2.2 Increasing world belief in spirits. John of God, the psychic surgeon and healer, is advertised worldwide. Many mediums advertise healing tours there in numerous magazines such as Psychic News, Kindred Spirit, Caduceus. There are tours advertised on the internet, and I attended a video and lecture whilst in California. They encourage everyone throughout the world to go there and promise healing of all and every condition. I remember when I first heard of John of God at the lecture in California, I was impressed by the video of the psychic surgery with John of God using a knife in someone's eye without anesthetic. What I questioned was their prescription of herbs for healing. All the herbs are identical was what the lecturer said, and everyone gets given them and they heal every individual condition. The lecturer made a joke about this, obviously herself finding identical herbs a bit strange. They are blessed by the entity being the spirit who works through John of God. Why not give different herbs for different conditions, I thought, like Chinese medicine. Overall I was impressed by the video and lecturer and made a decision to go for my own healing. My healing need was the complete disconnection of the reptilian entity. I was encouraged again and again to go, but the financial cost of it was off-putting. The tours that they recommended for first-timers were $1,300, and then there was the flight on top costing £600. I work as a healthcare worker in hospitals where the wages are not high. Where I was visiting in California, people had to save up for some time to go. It was a community where the wages were low. So because I couldn't afford to go, I didn't for a year. When my finances improved, I contacted Robert Pellegrino, who advertises on the internet and had written the book The Miracle Man of Brazil about John of God. Having written a book, I trusted that he would be the best person to go on a tour with. I told him my problem and he assured me that it would be healed and encouraged me to go. So I saved up and went on his 2-week tour with great hope. There were about 20 people in my tour with a wide range of illnesses or just life problems. As I said, everyone is encouraged to go with any condition. Some of my group was in financial hardship and it upset me the lengths they had to go to get the money. One man was a DJ and had to sell all his musical equipment to go. Another man was unemployed due to his illness and had to borrow the money. Several visits were also recommended, which runs into thousands of pounds. The second day we were taken to see the entity. We queued up in a very long queue. I felt sick with nerves as I approached John of God. I was surprised at my feelings, as I would have expected to feel good seeing a healer. There was something about the entity that scared me. I had about 5 seconds in front of the entity, who didn't even look at me, and I was told to sit in the meditation room. I sat there waiting for my healing, but nothing happened. I left the casa, as it is called, very disappointed. I wasn't the only one in the group disappointed. Another lady was in tears, feeling that she had been given no healing at all. John of God is just 21, one man, and he is the only healer and sees hundreds of patients a day. 2/3 of the patients are local Brazilians, the poor who see John of God as we would see a doctor. These were the people who were given more time in front of the entity. He would hold their hand and talk with them. A few minutes was spent, whereas the foreigners were whisked by in a few seconds. I experienced this gain when trying to see John of God the man. I waited outside his office, and despite being first in the queue, and the local Brazilians were given preference. I suppose this is understandable. the healing is for the poor Brazilians and there is only so much healing one man can do. But then foreigners should not be encouraged to go. So why are they encouraged to go en masse? This is for a reason that is the hidden agenda of John of God Healing. Their agenda is not just healing. It is increasing world belief in spirits. So foreigners are encouraged there for the purpose of making them believe in spirits. The healing of foreigners is not the objective, although undoubtedly some are healed. So I continue. Having been in front of the entity once and without being healed, I became very upset. I experienced uncontrollable crying in the meditation rooms, feeling very disappointed. This was obviously unacceptable. I was meant to be being healed and certainly bad PR for the casa. So the second time I went in front of the entity, I was told to sit in the room next to the entity where intense healing and psychic surgery took place. I was very pleased to at last be getting healing. But I was given no healing and instead a pretense of healing was put on just to stop me crying. After this session still not healed, I confronted the casa that they had pretended my healing. This went down like a ton of bricks, and I was subjected to near-instant psychic attack. "We are too busy," I was told as an explanation, and it seemed very similar to the National Health Service hospital I had been working in, too many patients and not enough time. Thereafter I was made to feel very unwelcome. I still had a week of the tour left and had no choice but to stay. The casa obviously had methods to deter unwanted people from staying, a self-defense method that made the unwelcome guest extremely uncomfortable. I became guarded by spirits who appeared red and unpleasant. At one time I was taking a walk by myself and an entity attacked my heart-lung area. The John of God casa is subjected to a lot of attack from lawyers, police, and has managed to keep going despite this. This self-defense strategy must be part of the reason, and I will explain later the extent that the self-defense goes to, and is shocking. An observation that I made that I thought rather odd was the treatment of relatives of the sick. Some of the very sick came along with a relative. These relatives were in fact not sick and yet were all prescribed herbs. Why were they prescribed herbs? They had no illness to cure. No explanation was given. One lady in our group who was caring for her paralyzed son met me in tears after going in front of the entity who had asked her was she taking the herbs. She had in fact been given no herbs, and the entity red-faced had to suddenly switch her onto herbs. Her faith in the healing power of the herbs had been shattered, and also the healing of her son. It seemed to me that healthy relatives were being given herbs not for the purpose of healing. So do the herbs heal? At that point I wasn't much interested. 2.2 Be John of God in league with the reptilian Etish. Etish recruits help / a book gets written. On completion of the tour I left for home extremely disappointed. John of God had identified a long-distance connection with a reptilian but had not removed it. As I was leaving the casa, an entity from the casa followed me home. It had replaced my spirit guide who was taken from me at the casa and who I have never seen since. They say the healing continues for several weeks after the visit, and I was hopeful that perhaps the reptilian would now be disconnected. This was not the purpose of the entity's presence. I later discovered from Archangel Uriel via his channel Jennifer Hoffman that the entity's name was Mary Magdalene and that she oversees John of God. She is a big and powerful spirit and had dark motives for attaching to me. She believed I had discovered one of the secrets of the casa, which is the herbs are just placebo, in other words have no healing power and are used because people expect medicine. Etish was also threatening to have the reptilians publicize in newspapers about these herbs. She greatly feared newspaper articles, believing that it would damage John of God. She was certainly neurotic and had weaknesses, and I became subjected to a shocking attack and harassment lasting a year. She teamed up with a reptilian performing psychic surgery 22 on me to place the reptilian Etish into my aura and body. I had gone to John of God with a long-distance weak connection to Etish, and the result of the trip was to now have a far worse entity attached to me and a reptilian in my aura. David Ashworth in Dancing with the Devil. Reference Note 10 says that once you have one entity, it is the thin edge of the wedge and it attracts more, and this is certainly what happened to me at John of God, and I think my story needs to be told. I have evidence of her presence. As I said, Archangel Uriel identified her. The spiritualist church had a psychic artist draw her. the head of a leading spirit release organization, identified her as satanic and from John of God. How the entity from the John of God healing treated me is absolutely diabolical. I went there for healing, and to join forces with a reptilian to harm me is disgraceful. The entity from there was far more powerful than the reptilians, so the John of God psychic surgery center wrecked my life for a year. Etish would also give away reptilian secrets and information to her in exchange. They made plans together to get Brian in trouble, with lies that would blame Brian for what the reptilian entity had caused. Other lies were going to be told. The reptilian entity had caused the secret about karma to be discovered by the spirit realm, but they were going to blame Brian. The reptilian entity gave away other secrets to Mary to entice her to work for him. She, at the same time as working for him, was working against the reptilian organization and caused this book. She wanted this book published, and she went to great lengths to have it published. She edited it and pushed it to completion, even writing against them herself. This book was completed at her hands. Showing off to Mary and stuck in his reptilian problem of have to win over me. Etish cares nothing for the reptilian organization and is an absolute liability. Having to hide from them for 3 years, I suppose, says it all. I returned to John of God after a year and confronted Robert Pellegrino about the entity attaching from John of God. He admitted it does happen and had even happened to him for 2 weeks. But didn't offer a solution. 3. Their overall plan: they want this planet for themselves. Here I start the conversations which are throughout this book with Etish. He used to mimic Brian's voice. Q is my question and E is his answer. I have not included all of my questions, which were probing to shorten the information. Here Etish explains how the reptilians' plan for us is to have us all implanted with a minute device. We will agree to this implant because it will seem better than not having one. In order for us to agree, they are currently replacing cash with a card. This card will be made to seem insecure and subject to theft. We will then believe that a small device under our skin a financially better option. The whole world is to be implanted, so native cultures that do not bank are being or will be destroyed. The most likely way that the reptilians believe they will implant this device is via an identity card, and this will then be made to seem inconvenient. It will get lost and replacement will be difficult. We will agree to an identity implant as a solution to the problem of lost identity cards. This device will enable the reptilians to kill us, and they plan to do this when everyone in the globe is implanted. Etish says we will all be killed by electrocution via the implant. I believe this is possible, having received the weapons I describe. 23Q, why are you here? E, to take over the planet, girl. We are in control right now. You are all going to be killed one day, and then our hybrids will take over, and this is our planet, not yours. Q, what do you want? E, we want your planet, no two ways about it, that's all we want. Q, why don't you coexist with us? E, no, we can't coexist because you'll kill us. No, we've got to get rid of you. There's so many of us that we need the whole lot and more besides. Q, how are you going to kill us all? E, you are all going to die, but prior to that we'll have you all under wraps. Q, how? E, with an implant. Q, is it a microchip? E, maybe, maybe not. Q, what about the lens of the eye identity thing? E, we want to do that, so we can identify you all. No fake passports, we'll know who you are. Q, how are you going to kill us? E, we'll have you all implanted, and then we'll set this timer ticking and you'll all go off pot. The implant will wipe you all out. Q, are you using this implant already? E, yes, we've got a few people tagged up. Q, who? E, prisoners. Yes, we've tried it on animals. We'll rig it so it kills you. It will electrify you. We're not sure yet exactly how we are going to do it. No, we can't use viruses. It isn't effective. Some sort of electrocution. Right now we haven't got the technology. We are working on it. Q, how will people agree to this implant? E, they'll want it, because they'll think it's a good thing. Q, why? E, because we are rigging it right now. Money girl, it isn't secure. Theft, fraud, money laundering, wallets getting stolen, credit card fraud, lost pins. A microchip will seem a better option. You'll be totally secure, no theft whatsoever. That's a second option, isn't it? R24 number 1 is the identity card, Plan A, and the identity card will replace everything: your passport, NHS number, driving license, and there's another way we can put the implant in, social security number, because they'll get lost and it will make things awkward for you. No holiday abroad for the next year because there'll be delays in replacing it. If that's lost, everything's gone, hasn't it? They'll have no way of doing nothing until it's replaced, and will probably say we'll replace it at a drop of a hat, but then things will change and it isn't going to be replaced so easy. Extremely convenient after the deed. We may try both and see what works out. Q. What are you doing with Plan B? E. We're rigging things right now. Q. How? E. Money isn't going to be money quite soon, the euro is part of it. Much easier. Q. What will happen to the euro? E. It will lose its value to force you all into it. Then when everyone has got the euro, there isn't going to be no euro, it will be all on your cards, no money at all. Q. What will happen to the euro? E. I'm not telling you, the euro will keep dropping to about €1 per pound, so the euro's strong, so you'll want it. There will be incentives, for no money, maybe we'll just withdraw it all, then it is all on cards, and then the card is no good, they are not secure, and you're going to want something different, because you'll get ripped off. Credit card fraud, it's all being set up right now. Q. How? E. No, we don't need no fucking PIN numbers for credit cards. If you have to give your PIN, then it's secure, isn't it? So we'll stop that. There will be no PIN usage and we will make it easy to steal from you. We can't do much with switch cards, it will be credit and switch together. Other than make it difficult for you, it's already happening, they get lost and they are not replaced so quickly. They are not secure, till receipts. Credit cards are the best for you, put you all in debt, then you are all going to be in debt, and then we'll up the stakes, interest rates, they'll shoot up, and then we'll come up with some better deal and you'll want it. Credit cards are easy to come by, and that's us, and we're the credit cards, we make the rules and the rules are geared so you spend more than you earn, you're all in debt. We're in control of most of the credit cards and they are very easy to come by. We're trying to stop PINs and anyone that opposes us gets it. We killed a man because he didn't support us. Yes, he was in Parliament and he died, heart attack. It was us, it was this year, 2003, our whirly thing, see weapon number 1. During one of our meetings early in the year March, we'd been working on him before his blood, making him more susceptible. It did not look natural, we take our chances. Our heart attacks are a bit different. Because the person doesn't have a clot, no ischemia, we don't allow autopsy. QI? E. Because they would find nothing wrong with him. It's always at the same time of day between 2 and 3 a.m. By 4 a few people are getting up, normally at 2:40 a.m. is the exact time, and we all work on people together. If you had PINs, a plan would not work and we'd have to rethink. Anyone with any sense would want PINs at the till, and some countries 25 use it, and we're going to stop it. E. Tony Blair wants a PIN, the fucking shit rag. Tony Blair isn't going to last long if he promotes PINs. Q. Credit card fraud right now, I get all the money back. E. That will change, we'll stop all that, when you have no choice, when there's no money, we'll change the rules, maybe we'll pay a bit but not the full amount. The new rules are that you are not going to get your money back if it's stolen, we just can't afford it. We'll reduce the time period down, 4 hours to report it, or maybe we'll lower the amount. Q. What about protection? E. We'll try and make insurance protection hard to come by, lots of exclusions, things like that. 4. What we can do to stop you. Basically we need to know what is going on. Burying our heads in the sand is the worst thing we can do because they are more than halfway through their plan and won't give up unless they are forced to. E. If you all refuse, or a lot of you refuse to take part in our control mechanisms, then our plan won't work. You could all refuse to use credit cards and bank cards, and then we haven't got a leg to stand on. Q. What is the most important thing anyone could do to stop you and keep the planet to themselves? E. Riot like crazy, and that will do it. Mass riots. E. Refuse all credit cards. E. Campaign for a PIN if you use credit cards. E. Refuse to send your children to school. E. expose the top dogs. E, refuse to vote for any president whatsoever because it will always mean we're in control. E, take all your money out of the bank and put it in a safe deposit box. E, expose us basically and then we won't hang around. E, if you don't use a credit card then we're not going to be able to do away with money, and if money is still there we can't implant you, and without an implant we can't destroy you. E, right now there's still money around, but when we need to withdraw money then you need to prevent us doing that by not wanting it, and the way to do that is not use credit cards. Q, how are you going to get rid of money? E, it will seem more sensible to have everything on card. QY 26E, it's going that way already. It's so easy to use a card, why bother with money? There'll still be checks or a card. The protests/riots need to be when we propose getting rid of money, because once we've done that we're on a roll. More and more stuff is on cards will simplify things. Q, what will children use? E, children will have cards to their parents, with a spending limit on it. At the till there won't be any checks, it will all be on card. The shops will not accept anything but cards soon. QI? E, because it's easier. We have to remove money in gradual stages, so it's harder to use. Cash machines are not safe. People will start getting mugged at cash machines, the machine will swallow their card more easily. They've got no card for another 20 days, the banks are open at shit hours, you've got to take time off work to get there, huge queues at lunchtime. We'll make it a damn sight harder to get your cash. They'll invent something else and it will seem like the ideal way of purchasing, like an identity card. It will give you everything you need in one card, but then of course it will be converted to an implant because they'll get lost. 5. Colonizing the Earth with their hybrid. After we have been killed they will wait for 10 years and then colonize Earth as a hybrid of a human and a reptilian. They are developing this hybrid using human DNA, see genetic samples. The hybrid is described here. He will kill everyone off and leave it about 10 years for things to rot, so we don't have to deal with it. There will be a few thousand humans left and we'll deal with them. We don't want any humans breeding like rabbits. I guess we may allow some to remain, we are not sure. Q, how to avoid the implant? E, get yourself out of society, don't pay your dues, no bank account, that's basically the main way of doing it. E, we'll try and kill the rest, it will be hard for us initially being new to the place. Q, what will you look like? E, hybrid of us and a human, more human, and you'll be a greenish shade with a few bits and pieces attached. We now would appear green, dull green. We are not going to look pretty, we'll have all the senses, we won't have any scales, a bit pointless, a bit of hair, not a full beard. Height, about 6 feet 8 inches, we've got it all planned out, we know exactly what we are going to look like. Q, did you experiment on humans before? E, yes, a millennium ago, million years ago or more, we used to come down and take humans, abduct them and then dissect them and a few other things. Q, what did these abductees look like? 27E, fuller features, cavemen, fur all over the place, stocky build, muscle bound like hell, short. 6. Reptilian entities. They use reptilian entities as part of their harming techniques to locate the victim and feed back the progress of the harm the reptilian is doing. They attach to the victim for the duration of the harm. I have many personal experiences which I describe later, they are very interesting. Here is what Etish said. Q, what are the entities all about? E, well, we are Brian's mates, I had 2 entities at the time, well, we're reptilian in spirit form and we tell Brian what is going on. Q, on what? E, on you, girl, let him know what you're up to and where you are. Q, what's your purpose? E, we act like spies. Q, what information do you give Brian? E, we tell him where you are. Q, you locate me? E, that's it in a nutshell. Well, he uses us a bit more than that, but that's up to him, isn't it? Q, so you tell him where I am. Why? 28E, so he can get you or others can get you. Q, whom does he use them on? E, some of those we need to get. They tell us what's going on with the person. How's his health? His physical condition? When's he most susceptible? When's a low point for him? How's his heart ticking along, So we can dig the knife in. It's like you've been bugged, the entities can suppress a person a bit. Q. How many people have these entities? E. A reasonable number and they don't know it is there. There is normally only one and I know that you've got two to keep out that helper you're getting. Q. Whom do they tell? E. The person whose geographical area they're on. Most people on our blacklist have them. Q. How long do you have them for? E. It's normally until we get them. Q. Until they're dead? 29E. Dead or off out of the way. They connect to the solar plexus. 7. Genetic samples. Brian collects genetic samples. They are experimenting right now and are looking for genetic material that will give longevity as they live a long time and superb mental abilities as they have them. This is all to do with their hybrid program. They use brain samples in order to assess the mental potential of the genes, see also nutrition. Believe it or not, Brian collects these samples from women he seduces whilst they are asleep. He ensures they stay the night. Here is how he collected mine. It was whilst we were both at the language school in Spain. At the school he was able to attract women to him very easily and was very friendly with a lot of women there. Brian with a class of women was like a fox in a chicken coop. He'd work his way through the lot. This surprised me because he was not good looking, not wealthy, he was black, so there was the race difference, and yet he had women eating out of his hands. I later discovered that he uses seduction techniques involving mental processes. It worked on me and I fell for him after initially finding him unattractive. We had sex for the first time the day before I returned to England to work. This was during the day at my request. Although I was attracted to him, I was permanently tense around him and felt worried about staying the night. Brian was very different in the bedroom. His Jack the Lad manner, which was the host Brian's previous personality, disappeared and he was like a professional, slick, very experienced, like a male prostitute, like he did this for a living or something. He said all the right things, but it was as though he had done this a million times before and I was on his conveyor belt. He had done this many times before. He was getting genetic samples from every woman he met. I worked in the UK for 4 weeks and we kept in contact with email. On my return to Spain I met Brian at his barbecue and there he was getting friendly with a female neighbor of mine. He had emailed me about her. Nevertheless he wanted me to and persuaded me to spend the night with him. I didn't want to. I was still very tense around him. He went out of his way to make sure I stayed the night, buying me new toiletries, even clothes, so I would stay over. He is very persuasive but normally doesn't spend money on his girlfriends. I stayed and it went well, and so I was very surprised when next time I saw him at Spanish school he didn't want to know. He had got his sample, you see. His charm disappeared and in its place was a moody, unpleasant man, or at least towards me. He didn't call, he was no longer interested, but I was though. Once I have sex I am emotionally attached and wanted to keep seeing him, so I then did the chasing and suggested dates. We kept seeing each other but he wasn't the same and I hardly saw the charming Brian again. Other women were getting that one. Here Etish talks about Brian's collection of genetic samples. E. Brian has collected at least 1,000 samples. E. He takes a brain sample. Q. What with? E. A piece of equipment. But it's the human that does it in person, it isn't the alien, although he directs Brian. Q. When? E. When you are snoring and he sees to it that you are snoring. 30. Q. How? E. The women have to stay the night, the sex bit is up to him. E. He knocks them out. The reptilian does that. About 3:00 AM is the usual time. Q. Where does he access the brain? E. In between your soft tissue and your skull. He doesn't need to go through the skull, there will be a slight hole. Sometimes he chooses the nostril or the hairline so you don't notice. He gets a miniature sample and he gives it to one of his mates. They meet and he takes it in the UK, in the London area. E. Where does he store them? E. He has a special place for them out of reach. He has a little safe. His mates takes them to them. Someone else analyzes them in the UK somewhere. We can do it ourselves. We have the technology. E. We manufacture the equipment here on Earth, one of our companies makes it, it's medical equipment, we say it is but it ain't, To the people that manufacture it, the company makes pharmaceuticals too. Bristol Myers, they make a few bits of equipment for us, like that probie. He checks out the astrological compatibility with all the women he wants to seduce, and if it isn't compatible then he doesn't bother with them afterwards, he dumps them, but if they're compatible he'll try and make it work, keep them as his buddy or something, or if he is available then he'll try and see them more. If they are a Gemini or a Gemini ascendant then he always gives it a whirl, doesn't he, no matter what. 8. Debilitation through nutrition. I am a nutritionist and I know this information to be correct. There is literature that baby milks lack the oils essential and that there is possibly an association with poor brain development, but nothing is done about it. Here Etish describes how baby milks are used to greatly reduce our intellect. They do not support proper brain development due to a lack of nutrients called essential fatty acids, EFAs. These EFAs are deliberately excluded, even today. Scientists are suppressed, even killed. He confesses below. My example is as follows: my DNA sample was taken unknown to me. Etish has told me what they learned from my brain sample. My potential intellect is 89% when compared to the potential of the population. This is high and met their requirements. However, my actual intellect is 60% when compared to this figure purely because I was fed solely baby milks as an infant. This is a 33% reduction and I am very upset, and it rings true. I have had to take a different path because of it, one a lot harder. I have also wasted many years. Of no consolation at all is the fact that as the majority of our intellects are suppressed in this way, my intellect is better than most. Another topic of great interest is what Etish discusses about wheat. There is a substance in wheat which causes hardening of the arteries, and they promote wheat-based products for this reason. Thirdly, our soils lack trace elements which further reduce our intellect. This is deliberate. Their hybrid will be a combination of a human and a reptilian with a human's digestive system, hence their extensive knowledge about wheat. They are currently genetically engineering rice to increase the protein content as their staple diet. 31. Here is what Etish said. Q. What will you be eating when you come down? E. Rice girl. No wheat. We don't want atherosclerosis. That's what it does to you. Scientists have discovered this and we hush them up. Yes, we've killed a few scientists because of this wheat thing. We promote wheat to debilitate you. Hardening of the arteries. It's the endosperm. Wheat germ is no good for you, that's what it is. Bran, no problem. Rice is the best thing you could eat. Q. Why? E. Its protein is complete so you can live off it almost. Our digestive system is going to be human, there's no other way. E. Substance in wheat endosperm, sticks in your blood vessel walls and then acts later so you don't see it initially. E. You're lacking trace elements, they are not in the soil, and well, they are not in agricultural soils. Q. Why? E. Because we make sure it doesn't get in there, so you're less intelligent, a bit dimmer, so you can't put 2 and 2 together, and a bit more besides. We don't want you intelligent because you're going to look at this situation and think, it doesn't make any sense to me. Q. Am I less intelligent than I should be? E. Well, you all are because it's your brains, you lack essential fatty acids, EFAs in your brain makes you dimmer. Q. How much dimmer? He told me that I should have been 89% intelligent and this was reduced to 60%, because everyone is reduced. I am 75% intelligent compared to the population. Q. How do you know? E. We checked it out with a bit of brain tissue. E. You all lack EFAs. They are not in baby milks, not the right ones, some of them but a few missing, and in the past there weren't any, and you were bottle fed. E. If you had been breastfed and had 89% intellect then you would have done fucking well, brilliant, you would have been the tops in nutrition, and you are not clever enough to get there now, so we mucked it up for you. University 2-1, I only got a 2-2, and then straight into research. E. The scientists don't know because we never finance. Q. Baby milks? E. We don't add them, do we? That's deliberate, we don't let the scientists find out, we suppress it. We are the baby milks, we are in all of the baby milks. E. G. Nestle, Cow and Gate, any baby milk 32 company, with them. E. We've killed a baby milk scientist, you'd know him, he's quite well known. Heart attack, encircling stuff, See weapon number 1, he was convinced we were wrong and tried to tell other people. Q. What about current baby milks? E. We don't put enough in baby milks and food, we keep the quantities as low as we can, just enough to keep you satisfied. 9. Financial department. They are the banks and they control us through debt. They use a universal law of abundance which affects our prosperity when we are in debt. Debt draws money and other things away from us. We have to work harder, which leaves us with less time to question what's going on or raise our consciousness. E. Debt's a biggie for us. We are all the international bankers, and if you are all in debt it means we've got the grips on you when the time comes, but that isn't why we're doing it. It's our money you are using, we manufacture it and rake in the interest. There is nothing backing the money up, no gold is there. It isn't just about making money, we're using a universal law. If you are in debt things don't go your way. A money law of abundance, anti-abundance. Debt draws things away from you, and it isn't just money. We know all the universal laws and we use them, and it isn't just that one. E. We're behind most of the credit cards, so you don't know where you are with your money and you spend more than you need and then you end up in debt. We want you all in debt so things don't go your way, then debt makes more debt. We dig the knife in, negative spiral downhill, and we help it on its way, taking more than is reasonable once you're in debt. Look at the overdraft fees, £30 for a bounce direct debit. 17% interest on bank debt. It's absurd, and why doesn't anyone question it? Well, if they do and they are in a position of power, we do them and or get rid of them. We own all the money so we can control you better. If you're in debt you've got no time, you have to work more to earn more money and then you can't consider anything else. Look at the rich and famous, they've got more time to do alternative stuff. Q. What about mortgages? E. Well, a mortgage is a debt, isn't? A big mortgage makes your money go badly for you. Anti-abundance. Girl. Q. Doesn't the value of the house offset that? E. No, it doesn't. The value is just theoretical until you sell it, so we wouldn't mind you all having huge mortgages. It makes things go worse for you and we've got the grips on you. 10. Space stations. Brian showed me some images of his space station and spaceships. Small ones that went in and cut of the space stations. It was like the most technical, awe-inspiring, science fiction movie imaginable. I was speechless to their power and advanced technology. I felt like a minuscule nothing in comparison. Any feelings that I had of abilities that could touch theirs disappeared. They are so far above us in technology that 33 it is beyond my comprehension. I revere them, am in awe of them, in no way am I as high as them. I have my place and it doesn't match theirs. These were my feelings. They are completely out of league with humans. It is like we are ants in comparison. The ants are weak and they will be crushed just like that. The adversaries need to be respected. Our egos will all disappear if we see them in their true arena. Another time I was aware of their space stations and ships is massive and plentiful. They were dark and felt nasty, nasty, nasty. I think they were around Earth, and I have sensed this other times, a mass of space stations encompassing Earth, a dark color and feeling to them. Below Brian describes how the reptilians are in fact here in their space stations around the Earth. They live as reptilians in these space stations which are not visible. They are very intellectual and cold and what we would consider bad, and on this planet very cruel. Surprisingly they are high beings. They are also much higher than we are and extremely advanced beyond anything we can imagine and operating in the fifth dimension. They are helpful amongst themselves, and I was once helped by a Draco who is a great deal higher than Brian. They think nothing of killing and enjoy the thrill. They are not of this planet and evolve in a different way to us. It is hard for us to understand how they think. We are not the only planet they want. They have many other planets that they are taking over. Our planet is the most beautiful, but they have to kill us off in order to live here. We are more advanced than their other planets, so it is not an easy planet for them, but they have got halfway with their ultimate goal of living on the planet. They can't breathe here and they have to produce a hybrid which they are working on. Here is what Etish said, we don't set foot on the place, Earth, in case we're seen, unless needs arise. We live in space stations in the Earth's atmosphere. You just can't see us, can you? We are not invisible, our spaceships are. Q. How many of you are there? E. A million or more of us, though not all physical. We've got lots of planets on the boil, spread our net where we want it. We destroyed our planet, war, and we don't want war anymore, but needs arise. We've got many planets on the boil, some less advanced than you, some about the same. Q. Why so many? E. Because they may not all work out. We don't throw all our eggs in one basket, and there are an awful lot of us, so we would like to take our pick of the crop, what works out the best, and perhaps have several. Why should we settle for one when we can have more? Q. What about more primitive places with no dominant evolved species? E. We may get eaten by the local wildlife. We need a safe haven, plus we don't want to be fighting all the time. E. We think your planet is great. I'll tell you that now, an amazing place. That's the reason we're here, because it isn't the easiest. We live in our space stations in the Earth's atmosphere, but invisible to you lot. We grow things and produce light and oxygen for the things we grow. Green habitat isn't our color, not where we come from. They're your stuff which we're breeding. We're a bit clammy, quite a few space stations. Our spaceships are more like space stations. They'll cool everything we need in them apart from decent light and decent vegetation. We've got all our own environment there, and we put masks on when we go in your place, our vegetable place, yours, or your animal quarters, because there is oxygen there. 34. Q. What are you like on your own planet? E. We used to do ourselves in, and then we realized there was no point to it. We are not as bad as you think. We're intellectual beings, but we have no feelings for anything at all. We help each other out a lot now, but not in the past. We've evolved. This is how we have become. We are ancient. We're cold beings and would kill you as soon as look at you, but we're rational too, and if it doesn't make sense we won't do it. We're not loving. We're cold as hell and intellectual, and as far as we are concerned that's our planet, and why not have it? And we desire your extermination. It's a different ballgame, and you are not going to understand it until you're in it. We should be living peaceably on our planet, and we'd still be going out and taking other planets. We don't make war with other planets, we take those that can't fight back. We're at peace. No one is fighting back. We see us as working our wanted planets, going out and expanding ourselves. 11. The environment. They wreck the environment but would rather not, as they want it to be their home. They are in fact concerned for the environment. They would like to do more for the environment, however taking over the planet is their only concern right now. As a result, the environment is being damaged. Etish explains here how they conserve endangered species by abducting them and storing them in their space stations. E. In our ships we have a lot of species. QY. E. So we can repopulate the Earth when we come down. We take creatures now and again and keep them in cold storage, hibernating. They'll come round. We breed a few of them too. We clone, but we've got to have a pair, not just one. When you and I are extinct, you meaning humans, we'll put them back in place because we wouldn't mind having them around. Creatures, animals, insects, we don't want them extinct, do we? Now and again we still take them. The last creature we took, we have a bird that's now extinct. It can't fend for itself, and it never could fly. The stuff going on in the Galapagos Islands upsets us. The Galapagos Islands are going to go extinct. The wildlife, it's still getting eaten. It's not us. We're into the environment, aren't we? We don't want it wrecked when we arrive, do we? Q. Do you support environmental groups? E. No, we can't, because they aren't us. The bottom line is that taking you over is more important than the environment right now. Q. Do you deliberately pollute the environment? E. Well, we do, but it isn't us. It is because of us, a byproduct so to speak. We would prefer it was different. Q. Do you suppress environment support groups? E. Yes we do, but only because they are not us. It isn't that we don't like what they are doing. We are responsible for the environmental problems. We don't mean to do it. It's a byproduct. We're very upset about it, extremely upset. We conserve things if we can. Q. Are you destroying the Peruvian rainforest? Yes we are. We haven't got Peru, have we? And if we were in there no rainforest would be touched, but right now we've got to do it. We've got to 35 get those natives out of Peru so we can get them civilized. We don't want anyone left who isn't chipped up. Natives who are not civilized can't be part of our plan, so we do what we can to destroy their culture and their habitat, so they have to toe the line. We want them all to be under our thumb, They don't have any banks, and that's the problem, isn't it? No banks means no implant. 12. Other reptilian hosts expose naming names. Etish has told me names of some well-known reptilians as humans. He has named not just politicians but actors too. Tom Cruise. They need to infiltrate all of society. He names 2 members of the royal family, Princess Anne and Prince Philip, and has explained that not all of the royal family are reptilians. This is described under royalty. He has named another well-known actress, Emma Thompson. They promote certain types of films, and Tom Cruise has almost killed a co-worker using the weapon number 1, and that they attack film directors. The reptilians want only certain films made. He even names a tennis player, Virginia Wade. Of course they are politicians, and 70% of the US government is reptilian. How else could they control the globe if their presence isn't in all walks of society? They have a ground force like Brian who cover geographical areas, keeping an eye out for anti-their plan activities, collecting genetic samples, attacking people such as me who was doing some higher consciousness work. They seek out highly conscious people and can tell their vibration just by meeting them or speaking on the phone. An implant is set off in the alien being put there specifically for this purpose. They then add the net, see anti-higher consciousness. Evidence I have for their presence in all walks of society is Brian's use of them. A colleague in Yahoo helped Brian hack my email box. I had weapons fired at me in a remote area in another country shortly after arriving. Brian has told me that he has a network of colleagues that he has used to track my location throughout my travels to other countries, and I have traveled a lot since this began to try and get away from him and their weapons. Q. Name some reptilians for me. What do you look like? E. They want to look bog standard, normal, so no one suspects them of being anything other than who they portray. They never look like hippies. It's the last thing we want to do. Presidents are Franklin Roosevelt. Q. Why are you not always president? C. Well, we are sometimes, but we prefer not to be in the spotlight. Blame Bush, and he isn't the reason. Q. How about a 4-year presidency? E. Well, it isn't long enough, is it? A lot of work for just 4 years. We'd rather be in power longer and not be ousted, but it has been known. We are more behind the scenes, and it's also because we don't want the finger pointed at us US politicians. E. 70% of the US government are us. 70% of the US government are human reptilians. Donald Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell. I'm not telling you. Henry Kissinger, John Ashcroft, 36. Jon Snow. Richard Shelby. UK politicians. E. Britain is 1, UK politician, Macmillan, UK politician, the UK Minister of Education, the UK Foreign Affairs Minister. Anyone to do with foreign affairs is likely to be one in any country. UK government, behind the scenes German politicians. E. Helmut Schmidt, he is. Bankers. E. Bankers are, most are. Nelson Rockefeller, Rockefellers, some are, some aren't. Vanderbilts, most of them are. James D. Wolfenson, President of World Bank. Top dogs in NatWest Bank are HSBC, Halifax, most of the banks. The UK royal family are Princess Anne and Prince William. Actors. E. Tom Cruise is 1, we need them everywhere. Certain films shouldn't be made, so he can get to other actors who are doing stuff that he doesn't want. Tom Cruise is into promoting wars. Top Gun, he promotes certain types of movies, he attacks the directors more than the actors. They try to stop New Age films, he harms them like Brian does. See Weapons, he's harmed an actor he used to work with, he almost killed someone pretty old, someone found out about him and he tried to do him in. He uses the encircling, see Weapon number 1. Almost Died has stopped working, quite recent, quite well known, they did a film together. E. We don't want alien films made unless they are pure fantasy. Close Encounters, that film we never wanted made. E. UK actress who married Kenneth Branagh is 1, Emma Thompson, so she knows what's going on, so other films can't get made. She just mooches around and finds out what's going on. She gets a lot of parts, we see to it, gets a lot of help. We finance films, we are behind a lot of films, her role is to prevent films getting made. E. Virginia Wade is 113. Their Secret Weapons 13. A. Introduction 37. There are many weapons that I will describe here, most that I experienced. I do not know what they are called, so I will refer to them as weapons Nos 1 to 7. I will describe them as best I can, however they are unusual, using a technology that goes beyond what people know about. These weapons are fired from the sky, perhaps satellite, or at least 3 of them are. They pass through buildings and into houses. I wonder if they use the technology of Nikola Tesla? After a year's experience with him, I have learned as follows. Weapon number 1 is used to kill, and it appears as though the victim has had a heart attack. Always at night, time of death 2:40 am or soon afterwards. Weapon number 2, lethal, creates a stroke. A wavelength is used that transfers a chemical, creating blood clots, killing in groups. Their London meeting takes place in the Royal Albert Hall as Freemasons' opponents are killed using weapons number 1 and 2. Number 3, NON, lethal, temporary effect. Suddenly out of nowhere you feel very disorientated, unable to function normally. A handheld device no bigger than a credit card is used to fire toxic energy substance. Is usually fired from a distance, could be used against public speakers. Number 4, NON, lethal, permanent effect. Causes general debilitation including depression, mind suppression, tension, dullness. Given between the hours of approximately 12:00 noon until 10:00 p.m. There is a peak at approximately 3:00 p.m. The afternoons are the worst. Work output is reduced. Number 4A, mass toxic energy substance put in the atmosphere to suppress us all. Sent between the hours of 12 noon until 10 p.m. approximately. Number 5, NON, lethal, permanent effect. This causes anxiety resulting from harmful vibrations given into the body, and a timer is involved. There is a break between at night. Number 6, NON, lethal, temporary effect. Used at night 8:40 am. Creates tension. Number 7, NON, lethal, permanent effect. Creates depression. Used on activists. The source of some of their weapons is a machine attached to their spaceships, harming using their minds. Visualizations. Enhanced witchcraft, black witchcraft combined with elf radio wave enhancement. Weapon NOs 1 and 2 are usually lethal. Weapon number 1 has been fired at me and fortunately I survived. See later. Weapons number 3 to 7 are non-lethal and could more accurately be called methods of debilitation. They all involve energetic harmful waves or energy substance, and Brian has called this toxic particles that suppress the bodily systems such as the immune system, the nervous system, mental processes, emotions. Water clears the effects of these weapons from the body. At least 20 minutes in strong jets is effective. There are other weapons not listed here, such as Andrew Hennis's experiences, which he says, "They have shot at me from orbit 3 times, the entire area around me lights up blue-white for 200 yards radius, and once up close with a handheld." If you receive weapons 3 to 7, you won't have a clue how it's done, but you'll know you're not how you used to 38B. Why are you suddenly feeling bad? You're physically and mentally well but feel not good. What could possibly be causing this? Why do afternoons feel so bad? That's weapon number 4. What is the cause of this tension? What is the cause of the depression? It's their non-lethal weapons. You may not sleep well, waking early. Weapon number 5. You are stressed for no reason. Relaxation is a thing of the past, more susceptible to infection. Most of these weapons, any peace you may have had will have gone. You are being debilitated without knowing who's doing it or how it's being done. I must explain that prior to knowing Brian I was very fit. I worked out most days with ease. I was never ill and didn't even know the name of my general practitioner, doctor, as I saw him so rarely. I was clear thinking and a very peaceful person. I had no medical history. In the first year of knowing him I was constantly debilitated as described under the weapons. I am pleased to say that at the time of writing this I am free from all of these weapons and very fit and well. I have achieved this at considerable inconvenience. This all must seem so strange, but they are real and the effects are to debilitate without being discovered. Yes, general dullness, feeling off, or stress may seem an explanation to what is going on. However, what is the stress? One had no reason to be stressed, and in fact I omitted anything that may be causing stress in my life. I was even on holiday and the effects was there lying on a beach. There was nothing mentally wrong with me, and I believe they were trying to make me seem less credible and wreck my life because of what I knew, and these weapons were given for that purpose. How could anyone else know that what I was experiencing was being inflicted, as I had sworn to silence? I had told Brian I wouldn't talk. How to know for sure if you are living with a human reptilian? If you live with a human/reptilian as I did, there is a sure way of knowing they are reptilian. For reasons involving their work, they have to be working at their computers between the hours of 2 and 3 at night several days every week. No holidays. They will not allow you to view them doing this. Brian did this and would have to go to bed early at around 10 p.m. in order to wake most strangely at 2:00 a.m. approximately. 13. B. Weapon number 1, creates a heart attack. Etish explains this weapon. The conversations below detail how Brian has to use a computer program to fire this weapon, and he needs the victim's street address. A machine in the sky fires the weapon as missile of vibrating particles. Brian then has to encircle it around the body using a physical device, normally the chest. Here is what Etish said: It's like a missile aimed at a certain point of your body. He tells the machine where you are and what part of your body. How? Via the computer. Internet. He can't communicate with that machine telepathically, it's got to be done via the computer. We don't always need to all get together. He types in your location in coordinates. Once he has typed in, the machine sends you that missile. It's harmful energy, particles of energy that are vibrating at the speed you don't want. They suck you in, they cave you in, your energy, and harms your organs. The whirl, a sensation I felt when received this weapon as it was being fired, is him in the machine, and he has a piece of equipment for it, and it isn't invisible and you could find it if you wanted. It's a joint effort. The missile gets fired and he encircles it around your energy. He directs it, he has to help it on its way with his weapon, which is physical. Etish has told me that the purpose of this weapon is to kill, and they kill by several human reptilians, 3 or more, using the weapon simultaneously. They are in fact all in their own houses, in their computer rooms. In 39 my case, only one person used it on me. If I had not spent so long in the car straight afterwards, then I would not have been so badly affected. Etish has also said that if the victim is in bad health, such as a heart condition, then one person using the weapon can kill, and it always appears as though the person died of natural causes. They always use the weapon at about 2:40 a.m. because 1, to ensure they fire it simultaneously, and 2, he has told me that they are more effective at this time when the world is asleep because there is less interference. I observed Brian getting up at this time and working at his computer. He would go to bed early, so I assume he could perform these nightly tasks. Etish has told me that the best protection is for the person to tell everyone publicly that they have no problem with their heart and have it checked out by a doctor to prove it. Here are my own experiences. This weapon is usually lethal, but if it is only used by one sole reptilian it may not kill, and I was fortunate. This is how I was first attacked. It was between 2 and 3 a.m. and I was awake, unable to sleep. Suddenly out of the sky a missile of some sort was fired at me and locked round my abdomen. This went on for about 10 minutes. It felt similar to being surrounded by a CT scanner, an invisible one. I wanted to flee. I had been wanting to leave Spain for the last 2 days as Brian had been working on me with weapon number 3. So I fled to the airport. It was an hour-and-a-half drive and I became so ill that I turned back. By now I was feeling extraordinarily tense, like my body was solidifying and I was losing consciousness. There wasn't any pain, but I felt like I was about to die. My organs couldn't work. I was returning for help from my neighbors, but before I got there I had swerved off the road, had managed to get back in the car and drive, but I had to keep stopping and getting out of the car. This gave me relief, the tension lessened. I now know that metal prevents this weapon dissipating. So the driving was actually making it a lot worse. I got to my neighbors and tried to remove the weapon by using their shower, scrubbing my body, as this had removed weapon number 3. This time it had no effect. The weapon had penetrated my body and was not going to be removed by water. It had worked its way inside over the course of a couple of hours in the car. I collapsed and I believe I died as I was looking down at myself reviewing my life. They took me to hospital. I had regained consciousness and I was aware that my abdomen was solidifying even more, rock solid as though the life was being squeezed out of me. I was having problems being conscious. I actually started to drink a liter of milk. I was dehydrated, but it was something about that milk that helped me because I began to come round. The milk must have absorbed some of the energy. I took more milk and then more and I felt better, however this offered only some relief. At the hospital, panicking, I had called for Brian. The neighbors knew that I had accused him of this and they called him anyway. It must have been hard for them to comprehend how Brian had done this to me. Brian then communicated with me. He was enjoying my suffering and seemed to feel free to be who he really was. The South London accent and swearing dropped. He spoke to me articulately and told me that he was a member of a suppressive force or a global conspiracy and that looked at from a higher perspective bad is ok and it's all part of a game. I didn't understand that game, that was for sure. He then taunted me about joining them and marrying him. I then told him that the neighbors knew that he was responsible. What was amazing to me at the time is how he was then able to remove all traces of this weapon from me. I admired him for some time for doing that, but I believe he was told to do it by his highest guide, and 2, he did it to keep from being accused of murder. Over the course of a week I recovered in the hospital where a lot of tests had been performed and they could not find a diagnosis. Brian had fired this weapon and he was 20 miles away at the time. It was from a satellite. The second time this weapon was fired at me, it was fired by someone else, someone who Brian had asked to do it. I was in Finland and this time it was fired at my chest. There had been a few days of working on my 40 chest beforehand and it was done to kill me. They seem to work on the person before they fire these weapons. Again, the time was between 2:00 am and 3:00 am and the same thing happened. It worked its way into my chest, which became constricted and I had difficulty breathing. I felt like I was going to die as it tightened. I was very scared. Fortunately I was near a spa. I knew water would help and I was taken there and the jets of the jacuzzi removed the weapon after 2 hours. I recovered almost entirely and had not needed a hospital. This provides evidence that Brian is not alone and has a network of colleagues across the globe. This would be the global conspiracy. 13. C. Weapon number 2, creates a stroke. Etish told me about a weapon that Brian was wanting to use on my father. This was one of his many times that he did deals involving reptilian secrets in exchange for favors with his disobeying of Brian. This is used to create a stroke. It is a weapon that is used in exactly the same way as weapon number 1. However, it differs in that it involves a wavelength carrying a chemical. It is the chemical that attacks the blood cells and forms clots. This chemical is unknown to general science, however it has a spectrum and remains in the body of the person attacked and it should be looked for as a spectrum. Time of death or stroke will again be 2:40 am. Again, the address of the victim is needed. Q. Tell me about this weapon. E. They use this a lot at their meetings and they kill anyone they don't like around via a stroke. I have been told they have twice yearly meetings where they work as a group to kill their opponents. See killing in groups. Q. Should these people have strokes? E. Of course not, they are not usually sick beforehand. Q. You don't have to be sick prior to a stroke. E. I mean they haven't got sufficient risk factors, it isn't expected. However, if they discover a little high blood pressure then we are on to them straight away. We make their blood sticky, platelet aggregation, we have to work on them first, basically, and then we go for the kill. Like Steve was doing with your father, working on his heart and his blood, making it clot more easily. However, we don't have to work first, not for our meeting, that is because with a lot of them working together they don't have to bother. These people will be killed without any prior work on them. But we are careful who we choose as we don't want to look suspicious. If everyone we didn't want had a stroke then it would be far too obvious, so this is why we vary at strokes or heart attacks are our main way of killing. Q. How does this stroke weapon work? E. It comes at you, hits your body, vibrates, attacks the blood, creates vast clots, I mean massive and many, and that's the end of you. It's an invisible force that we manufacture. There are particles in there that create havoc in your body. It sticks things together. It attacks the blood cells, the outside, and the cell membrane and makes them stick together. It does other harm too. Q. What other signs are there of what has gone on? E. They'll have died immediately with massive thromboses. There is no hemorrhaging. 41. Q. Anything else that may cause suspicion? E. They'll have died about 2:40 a.m. out of the blue. Their blood pressure may have been absolutely normal prior to the stroke, and that is a real giveaway. Q. But my father has Brian working on him. E. Anyone they kill outside of the meetings is killed in a different way. They have to work on these people first, and they have to have a pre-existing condition, but it may be so mild that no one cares. We work on it to make their death look more normal, and basically we make their blood more sticky, or perhaps work on their heart. They'll usually have raised blood pressure, and we'll have to find that out. Q. How? E. A reptilian entity may attach to them to find out. And then 4 or 5 of them kill the target using the weapon, and they do it from their homes. So we have the out of the blue method, which is really the one that someone should look into and draw mention to. The other method is harder to work out. Have a look in the news and who has died recently from a stroke who we would not like, and you can be sure that they were killed. It's that common, and of course we love a lot of strokes and heart disease because it disguises things. They don't do anything about those, although they say they do. They make a lot of it. How high our heart disease risk is that is not suppressed as it. They have killed a number of people at their last month's meeting. Check how the young politician died running for party leader. Q. What exactly do they send? Is it energy? E. It isn't of this planet, though they do manufacture it here too, but it is not something that you will know. Q. Has it particles in it? E. It has wavelengths. Q. Wavelengths of what? Sound? E. No, wavelengths of a chemical substance that gets into the blood cells. Q. How does it get through the ozone layer? I had heard that this is fired from above the ozone layer. E. It is very powerful. It is not energy. It's a chemical substance that they manufacture that is very hard until it hits you. It's DNA to you. It needs flesh to attach to, and it isn't going anywhere until it hits a human. This one seeps onto them, and then the chemical causes havoc. Q. An everyday chemical? E. Absolutely not. You will not have heard of it. It's a chemical that they fire at you, but it's got to get to you, so we combine it with a carrier that involves wavelengths. Q. Can you find this chemical? E. It's only a small dose. They don't know what they are looking for, but it will be there, and it isn't 42 natural. If they did autopsy they could find something possibly, but they are bound to miss it. Q. Why? E. Because it isn't human. Labs have nothing like that. Q. Has it got a spectrum? E. Yes, they could find it that way. It will be present as a spectrum. It's a wavelength transferring a chemical that they will not find because they do not know this chemical, but it will be present as a spectrum. 13. D. Killing at group meetings. The London meeting is held at the Royal Albert Hall as a Freemasonry meeting at night. Weapon no. S1 and 2 are their means of killing those people who oppose them at their group meetings. These people may not realize they are opposing them because of hidden agendas. As is described below, they can use the guise of a Freemasonry meeting to hold twice-yearly meetings in order to kill opponents in the vicinity. The London meeting is held at the Royal Albert Hall, and Etish describes how Brian's meeting in October 2003 included the killing of the scientist in England, and he appeared in the papers, cause of death unknown. Others are journalists, politicians. These deaths will occur simultaneously, and the normal reason given is a heart attack or stroke. Surely this must be investigated further. Here is what Etish said. Q. How do you kill people? E. One of the ways they do it is they get together in one of their big groups and then they zap people, and you could be on that list. People in our vicinity. They meet in a hall. They wouldn't mind meeting in a dome, the Millennium Dome, in London, pretty well known, in the centre of London, its historic Royal Albert Hall. They take it over for a night, all night. No one else, and that's including the people that work there, unless they are one of us, and some of them are, and they help us with it. They don't have to call it anything. The other staff get the night off. They arrive about 1:00 a.m. and leave at 4:00 a.m., a few times a year, a society meeting. Now and again Brian is a Freemason when he goes to these meetings. We are Freemasons but we're not Freemasons, we just call ourselves that for the purpose of coming up with some excuse for why we want to turn up like we do. We are the Freemasons. They aren't all us but a lot of them are. It's a certain part of the Freemasons that meet up, the other Freemasons haven't got a clue. Brian has just had one in the UK in October. It's twice a year. We kill a few people, you would have heard of a few of them, well-known politicians. We kill a few scientists now and again. There was one scientist we killed in October, quite a well-known scientist, I tell you that now. We've been known to kill a few journalists if they snoop around. We killed this scientist in October. He's been in the papers, and he was a young man. It wasn't a heart attack. Sometimes we use CVAs to kill people, and, I think it was a mysterious death. He was into research, he was a bit into physics, and he was working on something we didn't want him to work on. Yes, Brian helped kill him. Q. When did it happen? A week back, date of answer November 6, no one knew why he died 4313. Weapon number 3. This may be used on public speakers. This weapon was how it all started for me, for Brian fired it at me and I knew it was him. He has told me that he uses for this a handheld device no bigger than the size of a credit card and he keeps it in his wallet. He is to mentally focus and know the location of his victim. He may even call to find out if the person is at home first. It fires toxic energy substance. The effect is disorientation, unable to function normally, dullness, maybe tension and confusion. Repeated firing is used. This is a firing range of several miles. Here is what Etish said. The bullets are from Brian, a term he uses for the weapon. He has a little piece of equipment in his pocket, so to speak, which he carries around with him and use whenever he wants to. That isn't just at 3.00 am. He can use it during the day too, as you found out. Then he visualizes the person and then sends it to their location and he just fires it off. We make it, the UK makes some of them and other places make them too. Q. What size? It's little, handheld, a bit bigger than a pat of butter, not a lot. It's circular, it's solid but it's slim. He keeps it in his wallet sometimes. He does it when he's driving, he just presses a button and there it goes, when he is queuing in traffic, whenever he wants. Yes, it's flat alright, thicker than a credit card. If anyone found it they wouldn't have a clue what it is. It's hard as nails, there is no way you could have snapped it in two. This is an everyday non-lethal weapon that they use. At a touch of a button they have debilitated any opponents, but these opponents may not know they are opponents and certainly no idea who is doing it. It could be someone in the audience. David Icke has told me he had an unpleasant experience on stage, and James Bartley in the Universal Seduction 5 says about an incident of a colleague lecturing on buffos. I couldn't help but wonder if Vermin, a reptilian host, was sitting there aiming a portable non-lethal weapon at my colleague. My friend Sherry described to me the intense heat she felt on her chest and how she felt like passing out, and he goes on to say, Marianne Friedman felt like she was likewise being zapped when a retired Air Force colonel and alien lover sat at the front row of Marianne's lecture and stared at her intently. Marianne had to abruptly stop her lecture and go up to her hotel room and lay down feeling nausea and sick. It sounds like they were being fired at by this weapon. As you can imagine, if you drink alcohol you will feel like a stiff drink. The effects of this weapon will slowly dissipate, but here I can help. A power shower really makes a large difference, clearing away the toxic energy that has just been sent to you. The longer the shower, more will be cleared away. I found I needed at least half an hour, and I would suggest, although I have not tried it, that a hot tub/jacuzzi would be the most effective. Both this and the next weapon are using the same harmful energy, and Etish has said, the bullets, a term he uses for this weapon, and helmet, a term he uses for the next weapon, are exactly the same energy, just a different way of getting it to you. 13. Weapon number 4. How do you feel in the afternoons? Tense, dull, depressed, and you may be a victim of this weapon. None of these non-lethal weapons are obvious, but their effects debilitate you, so you are suppressed and your work output is reduced. There is a timer involved and you will receive this weapon between the hours of 12 noon and 10:00 p.m. approximately, with a peak at 3:00 p.m. approximately. And for you to receive this you have to have an implant that is like a helmet over your head, an alien attachment that is not visible which may be possible to remove. Water clears the effects. At least 20 minutes in JLJ strong jets, but it is ongoing. Here I describe my own experiences of this weapon. Mine may be different to others. How was I to know what was going on when I first had this done to me? I was away from home in Finland and from Brian when this helmet was attached, this alien invisible piece of equipment. Brian's alien being had done this, my location given to him by the reptilian entity. All I knew is whilst I was there I noticed a change in my brightness. I felt much duller. This was every day from then on until I returned home and it subsided, but I still felt less bright than usual. It was still there. The thin ozone layer must have been allowing more of this weapon through. I was now aware of the effects, but weaker. There was a tension, for no reason at all. I would try and reduce the tension with exercise, with food, with alcohol. All of these helped. This was not the only change. I felt blue. Life was not bright and cheery as it normally was, and I took so many showers and baths as these relieved it. I had a clear day gone, full of possibilities and optimism. I am an optimistic person and this left me. However, I will admit that I also had weapon number 7, which causes depression. How could this have happened? There was nothing going on for me that could have caused this. I noticed how different I felt in the afternoons compared to the mornings. Mornings were normal and I would think that I was back to my normal self, but then the afternoons was when I noticed it. About 3:00 p.m. was the worst. I did find exercise prevented this. I could feel a little of what was going on and I got more and more sensitive to how I was being affected. The tension would start at the same time every day and finish at the same time every day. Now these times are 10:30 a.m. until 9:00 p.m. in the winter and 11:30 a.m. until 10:00 p.m. in the summer. I had it for 8 months. This is evidence that this weapon is from the same source, and my only conclusion was that the source must be something in the sky, because as I got more aware of it, it felt like I was being rained on. It actually entered the chakras. I learnt over time to take a jacuzzi every night, and this way I was tension-free and positive for at least 16 hours until it started the next morning. I found that I needed 20 minutes to 1 hour, which is preferable, in the jacuzzi hot tub, ideally lying back with my head in the water. The effects were miraculous. There was clearness and brightness afterwards. I must recommend this to anyone who thinks they are getting this weapon. Etish has told me that this weapon is the result of an implant, which he describes as a helmet, which acts like a beacon to their machine, which then shoots toxic energy at the person, and he said it was designed to dampen me down. It's a physical structure which balloons over your head like a helmet. It's physical, but it isn't at your vibration, so it's invisible. Our machine senses these helmets and shoots extra toxic energy at the person. It's tied on in a few places. It ain't energy that holds it in place, it's physical cords tied like a ribbon. Q. Where is it attached? The meridians, your shoulder either end, just 2 shoulder blades. Q. What meridians? Digestive system, we can attach it to other meridians too. Vary it. Who could chop your way through the ribbons with mental processes if you knew exactly where it was? Q. Who receives this weapon? 45E, very common, we use this lot, so you can bet you bottom teeth that anyone we don't want has got one. Most politicians receive it unless they are us. QI? Because we want them to die. This weapon brings you bad health, you die it earlier. If we want someone to die a bit earlier than they should, then we put it on, don't we? Any powerful bloke gets it. All the politicians have it, that they don't want. It's our machines that give you these weapons. The timer, it's all done by a machine. Our machine is really incredible. Our machines are above the ozone layer. 13. G. Weapon number 4, a mass toxic energy substance put in the atmosphere to suppress us all. This is sent between the hours of the 12:00 noon until 10:00 p.m. approximately, with maximum sent in the afternoons, causing the afternoon blues. Everybody is suppressed and they don't want us to know it's done. Here is what Etish said. Q. What is this toxic energy that is in the air? E. It's energy harmful to humans, our machine manufactures it. We hope you don't notice it, so we keep it as low as we have to, our machine does it. QI. E. To suppress you, to make you all a bit depressed. It makes people feel a bit heavy, a bit depressed, not clear thinking, and can't function quite as well, the afternoon blues, that's what it does. So we can control you better, so if you are under the weather you are not geared up for anything and we get the better of you. So you're less likely to get enlightened and know what the ballgame is. Q. What are the exact hours? E. Hours -10:30 Amish until 9:00 p.m. right now, winter, and 11:30 Amish until 10:00 p.m. in the summer. Q. Why not longer? E. Because we've got to conserve our resources, we need to breathe too, girl. We've got our energy work and we can't do it while it's on, plus our other work. We know when to get things done, and that's early in the morning. That's why Brian gets up early, about 7:00 a.m. so he is a bit clearer. It's to stop people raising their consciousness. We don't send it everywhere, some places don't get it, like some small islands way out in the middle of nowhere, or Greenland, or the North or South Pole, or way out to sea some places. Do you feel bright as a button in the afternoon? Or, compared to the mornings and late evenings, do you feel tenser and a bit depressed or dull, in need of a stiff drink? Why? It could be argued that this is because of tiredness. If this were the case, then you would be feeling tenser and depressed at 10:11 p.m., do you? I would say that people feel better late evening than they do in the afternoons. Try having a sleep at midday 46 and see how you feel afterwards. If it is tiredness, then you should feel as good as you feel early to mid-morning. Try sleeping until midday, you should feel as you do in the mornings, but do you? I think that the afternoon effect will still be there because it is in the atmosphere. How do you find doing mental tasks requiring focus such as studying in the afternoons? It is easier in the mornings. Why? Try a jacuzzi hot tub for 20 minutes in the evening and see how much more relaxed you feel. Have a long swim, the same effect. Why? It can't be the heat because swimming in cold water has the same effect. Gentle exercise doesn't relax in the same way, in fact it can be stimulating. Why then does spending a long time in water relax us? Because it removes toxic energy or particles designed to suppress us. It could be argued that water removes stress. Have a relaxing stress-free day and still see the difference after spending time in water. How I discovered about this weapon was as follows. When weapon number 4 was removed, I noticed that a milder effect persisted. The hours were identical. So I realized I had been receiving the most toxic energy at 5 times the strength due to the helmet. It had been there all along, I had just taken it as normal as everyone does. I hadn't questioned why I felt better at certain times of day, specifically in the morning and late at night, and why I felt my worst in the afternoons. And why heavy rain days do I feel so good all day. Etish has told me that rain washes this weapon away. We are all being suppressed 10 hours a day by toxic energy sent to us in the atmosphere from machines above the ozone layer. 13. H. Weapon number 5. Etish mentioned another weapon that they use fairly commonly that causes tension and anxiety resulting from energetic vibrations given into the body. It is designed to reduce the lifespan of the person and reduce their general day-to-day activities. The tension and anxiety may only be felt mildly. He said there were some kind of cords used which the reptilian spirit of the host attaches. This will be persistent day in day out. 13. I. Weapon number 6, given at night, creates tension which will be noticed when you wake up. This involves a nighttime assault and when awakening attention for no reason. Toxic energy is fired at the victim during the usual time period between 200 and 3:00 a.m. for duration of 30 minutes. I have had this numerous times. I would normally sleep through it and wake feeling tense, and this tension lasted all morning. I felt lightly agitated. Water clears it away. Going in a car I would get a lot more tense, just like what occurred with weapon number 1. This method of debilitation is their mildest. That is all I know. This Brian fired from another country to me in England 13. J. Weapon number 7, creates depression, used on activists. They have a technique done to the emotions, they tie the emotional body up. This is a permanent technique that was done to me, but it can put itself right after a year. I contacted a well-known conspiracy author and she recognized this technique having been done to her. They particularly use this on activists to suppress them. The effects are depression of no cause with exaggerated negative emotions. For me, I only found this around people, and on my own I didn't experience the depression or emotions. A world-renowned healer identified that my emotional body had disappeared. He had never seen this before. Etish later admitted that Brian had done this using their technique of tying up the emotional body. He used the term cello taping it up. See his conversations. I have found a way of rectifying this procedure, and it is a long-haul flight. Yes, a return trip across the Atlantic removes what they have done to cause this. Etish told me that the emotional body springs open. I am now completely free of any trace of what they had done. I have excellent emotions and am not depressed. I had never been depressed before. It was completely out of the blue, but fortunately for me it didn't affect me 47 much. Here is what Etish said: they do it to a few people, it lasts just under a year and then it springs open and they do it again, and the entities, if there are any, let them know, and they wonder why they feel so very depressed all of a sudden, because that's basically it. You just end up feeling very depressed, low and more. Besides, the emotions take you over. That's the problem. We rig it. It is just the negative ones you feel. We interfere with a part of your emotional body, the part that gives you. The good emotions aren't there, it's gone, cello taped together. We put a few strands round it, so it holds it in place. We do it on those we really want to bring down. We do it on presidents so we can control them. If they feel depressed they can't fight back. Q. How many people do you do this on? E. One of our rarer ones. Any activists we don't want, they get it, that's for sure. You feel everything is hopeless, that's for sure. We tie your emotional body up and fold it in on itself. Q. How can you put it straight? E. Flying long distances can spring it back into place because you leave part of your emotional body behind, and when it catches up it can rectify itself. A few intercontinental flights. 13. K. Their machine, the source of some of their weapons. They have a machine that is used for most of the above weapons. There are different machines for different countries, and I have evidence that there is a single source for Europe from my traveling to Greece in finding weapon number 4 started at 1:30 p.m. This was in fact exactly the same time as my own country, as the clocks are 2 hours behind. This machine is not only above England but also American. As well as I fled to America, the weapon continued, but with a new timer. The source of this is actually above the ozone layer, so the ozone layer affects its strength. I found this when I was in Finland. It was much stronger there. As Steve describes, the source is a machine connected with alien spaceships. Here is what Etish said. Q. Where is your machine? E. Attached to our space stations. We're sending you all shit 10 hours a day and harming you through our machines. It's our machines that give you those weapons, the helmet, the cords, the timer. It's all done by a machine. Our machine is really incredible. Brian can adjust the machine. 13. L. Harming through mental techniques. Personal experiences. My father was also Brian's target, unknown to my father. I had told my father who Brian was right at the beginning, but had to retract this because Brian threatened me and I feared for my life. But Brian still wanted him dead and began to use me to harm my father. When this started, I fled the country to stop him doing it. His mental prowess is amazing, and I had begun to receive transference of what felt like energy alongside an image of my father with a blocked artery and then dying. This brought my father into my mind, and I believe this was transferred to my father. It occurred in waves. As it so happens, he had only a vague image of my father at that time and was unable to harm him directly. He, now having looked at a photo, no longer needs me and was harming my father, as he describes below. Once I knew I managed to stop Brian. I have taken action and writing this is one of them. I was disgusted when he 48 confessed as I had suspected as follows: B. I have been harming your father right up until a few days ago. Q. How long for? B. About an hour a day. For a few months on and off depending if he's away or not. Q. How do you know? B. I tried anyway and then I can tell. B. I sent him toxic energy at night. Weapon number 7. Q. How often? B. A few times a week. B. I want him to snuff, die, it before he moves don't I? B. Right this moment, Thursday, I'm sussing him out, how he's breathing, how's his ticker, heart, how's his blood supply, so I know what to do. I become your father don't I? Q. When? B. Whenever I fucking want and then I work on his old ticker using me old brain power and that heart muscle ain't going to want to know. I gave the hospital an old tinkle and they wouldn't tell me. I am finding that your father ain't in good shape and his heart is out of sync and I can make it worse can't I? I can make it more out of sync than it is already. Your father should be aware of what is going on, he's going to notice a sensation around his heart muscle. Q. How often? B. A number of times a day. Q. How can he tell? B. Well it ain't normal, it ain't a heart murmur, it's something different. Something being done that ain't nice and it ain't even you. He'll feel it for a few minutes and then it will stop, certainly a pressure. I'm surprised he ain't noticed it. I usually do it early in the day rather than the evening. Anything after about 9:00 a.m. in the morning I start don't I? Q. How often? B. Every half an hour, every hour, every few minutes. It depends what I've got on my plate don't it? I prefer the mornings so he should have noticed things more in the mornings. Q. How do you do it? He sent me an image of a clamp on the heart. B. I visualize his heart then I send something to it, it can be whatever I fucking want just so long as it harms him. 49 Q. The clamp that I saw. What does this do? B. It slows the heart right down. Another image he sent me was of a hand inside the heart with scissors. B. I'm doing some kind of surgery. 13. M. Enhanced witchcraft. Brian uses witchcraft to harm. He himself does not perform the witchcraft, his friend does this and he enhances it. I was a victim of this over the solstice, in June. For these 2 days he enhanced a witchcraft technique of trying to cut my artery in my chest. I felt a sensation in my chest, I had to block it out hiding in a gorge, and the rock stopped it. He was trying to cause a bleed into my lungs to kill me. Afterwards he arranged the firing of weapon number 1 around my chest to finish off the job. I was okay. William Dean Ross in the Universal Seduction Volume 1 describes an earth energy and spirit manipulation group. Combining occultism black witchcraft with ELF radio wave enhancement. This must be what Brian was doing. I believe that he uses this on others. Conclusion: we must expose these weapons in order to stop their usage. They work in absolute secrecy and if the population knew they wouldn't be able to use them. There are some ways of making yourself feel better which I have provided. They won't be using them if we know about them, their secrets exposed they stop. Publicity is all important. 14. Viral infections: they manufacture viruses for everyday illnesses such as influenza. They also use a virus to harm their victims. I have personal experiences, see later. Here is what Etish said: we're responsible for some viral infections. We manufacture them and then infect something deliberately. Q. What are you responsible for? HIV. We mutated the original strain and made it more virile, so you'd all be inhibited with sex. SARS. That was scare tactics, wasn't it? Strains of influenza to debilitate you. We want you to believe that the world's a shit place. Evidence I have is I was given shingles on 2 occasions. This is how I was given it the first time. Brian had invited me round unexpectedly, we had finished the week before after jealousy on his part. Then he was suddenly all smiles and charm and I couldn't understand it. I stayed the night and accompanied him the next day to Gibraltar. After the night was through he was uncommunicative and sullen and doing his put-downs. That afternoon I started developing blisters on my chest, and they were increasing in number and getting bigger before my eyes. I showed Brian and he showed no interest or concern. I was getting very worried. Brian dropped me off at my car, I masked him up and I remember him saying, "Why should I do that?" in an unpleasant tone. 50 This made no sense to me. We hadn't argued or anything, why was he so keen to have me stay over and now uninterested and off again? I went home and the blisters kept getting bigger and more of them. I called Brian and he didn't want to know, nor did he suggest I went to the doctors. He normally pushes me into going to the doctor. I don't like taking drugs so I tend to avoid doctors, however I was advised by someone to go and I did and I was diagnosed with a severe case of shingles. I took the medication and stayed in bed. I was very ill with it. I was alone in the house. Brian didn't call or visit. How could a lover be so uncaring? His behavior was strange and very inappropriate. The reason I'm later discovered was that he had deliberately infected me with shingles as revenge, which he later admitted to doing. The second time he produced a single shingles blister by working on a point on my chest. We were not together at the time. I don't know how he did this, but one was receiving other weapons at the same time. I think it was a mental technique he used. I have medical evidence. My doctor had never seen a single shingles blister before, nor was it in the textbooks. One left the country and the sensation producing it stopped and it immediately healed. 15. The Reptilian Anti-Higher Consciousness Agenda. 15. A. Introduction. Now, how can evil exist in an advanced high-vibration way? Well, I have found out that this was for me incomprehensible. I had been taught that as you get higher you get more loving, etc., and the reptilians are certainly high, you would like their energy, it feels high. This was explained to me by Brian. They are outside our game, shouldn't be here on Earth. They are in the higher game of, why not, where anything is possible, and why not evil? They are in fact Satan as described in the Bible. Jesus knew about them. Exposing them and what they are doing can stop them. The only reason that they have got this far is because no one knows. Burying your heads in the sand is a sure way of allowing them to keep at it. They must be secret, as we are far too numerous for them to handle. Their hidden agenda is preventing us raising our consciousness. They are doing this because we are going to know what they are doing as we become more conscious. Abilities such as telepathy, seeing energy, clairvoyance and a general increased awareness of what is really going on here will develop. They are telepathic, they work using energy and don't want us to realize. We could pick up their thoughts as I started to do, we could sense their energy techniques and weapons they use to harm, and then they couldn't use them. Brian has also said that we would be harder to control if we raise our consciousness. Such people don't play ball, they question more, and they won't be told what to do and other such things, very undesirable to a control state. Our real game here on Earth, I have learnt, is ascension and leaving Earth. In order to ascend, some term it enlightenment, we have to raise our consciousness or vibration. They are keeping us away from this by making methods of achieving this hard to come by and keeping us distracted, and this is why they try and stop and in some cases have organizations dedicated to higher consciousness. Other techniques they use to keep us away from raising our consciousness is by distractions such as education, television, sex, material possessions, cramming us with meaningless tasks such as bills, debt, working too many hours, we have no time to do it. Captain Bill Robertson also writes about this subject and says that these aliens are suppressing the true spiritual nature of man, and forcing man into committing spiritual suicide. The actions of mankind is helping the reptilians take power and control, and eventually will help them succeed unless we change. This is done using the law of planetary karma, whereby mankind receives back equally what mankind does to other humans. The reptilians know this and manipulate us into actions that will attract back to us reptilian deeds. An example would be the persecution of races. The Jews would be an example, and 51 other races are persecuted, but we may not hear about it. We then will in return be persecuted by the reptilian race. The reptilians are behind such persecution, but we are doing it. Another example is our prison system, a worldwide system, and this attracts to us actions by the reptilians to imprison our spirits in their prison. There should be an alternative system to handle crimes such as fines for theft rather than imprisonment. Mankind can therefore turn the tide of reptilian takeover by changing such actions. 15. B. Targeting higher consciousness organizations. The reptilians targeted me because I was doing a higher consciousness course called Awakening Your Light Body by Luminescence. This was a guided meditation tape course and can be seen by those who can see energy in the aura. Brian can see energy. He has told me about the light body. That was the reason we went after you, because we wanted our hands on it, and now we've got it, or soon will do. They intend to stop it and likely kill Dwayne Packer, the founder. I'm very concerned for their safety. This is what Brian has said. Q. So what's going to happen to Luminescence? B. They are probably going to snuff it, be killed. Q. Who? B. Dwayne and Sanaya, or at least Dwayne. Q. How? B. Heart attack, the old encircling stuff, one of their weapons. Q. What about Sanaya? B. We can't kill her the same way, unless we can rig an accident. Maybe we'll do that. Q. When B. A or more, I don't know. Q. Why do you want the light body? B. Because it's effective, raises your consciousness, fast as well. It's why we bothered with you, because we didn't know about it. As well as infiltrating higher consciousness groups and taking them over, they kill the leaders using their weapons, described elsewhere, and they actually killed the Pankum Lama as Brian describes below. Cap 2 Bill Robertson states that the enemy, these aliens, are after the whole religious movement, and he also writes about how they infiltrate and take over religions and higher consciousness organizations, and he collaborates Transcendental Meditation as being one of the many such groups that have been infiltrated. The Lost Teachings of Jesus talks about fallen angels, Nephilim, working as higher consciousness gurus to deceive us. Here is what Etish had to say about it. E. Hare Krishna, we got them, we are in there, we've got some of our people there, haven't we? About 50 trying to destroy it. They called, he means the net, a load of them up, tried to prevent it 52 from spreading, tried to put a stop to them dancing through the streets. Transcendental Meditation, we've got them, put the prices up, made it harder for people to join. Buddhism, no, we haven't got that, but we are trying our hardest. Dalai Lama, he's corded up. Pankum Lama, we corded him up, we saw to him the heart attack was us, did the old encircling stuff on him, a load of them, 10 or more, did it on him at the same time. When enlightened people have heart attacks, then you know we're behind it. We worked on his heart a bit to make it look like a heart attack. We had him corded up, stripped him of everything, past lives and more, then we let him go. They've got the young one, 4-year-old, he isn't the Pankum Lama, he's one of us, he's a reptilian, he's going to be, it hasn't happened yet. Brian has told me that the Pankum Lama will be made into a human reptilian. Once the Dalai Lama is gone, we will take over, just biding their time, and then they will put someone in his place who is not really the Dalai Lama, but they will say he is. Anyone like that is going to be corded up, no two ways about it. Working on the Dalai Lama to kill him, of course we are, it's his circulatory system, they are trying to give him a heart attack, a blood clot. Q. What else do you do? E. We make them seem wacko. Behind the mass suicide news story, that was us, we exterminated the very lot of them and made out it was a suicide. We killed them off with something that you don't know two hoots about, a bit of an old radiation technique, and they all fall to the ground, warfare stuff, that's how we did it. Q. Why? E. To turn you against that stuff, we've got other energy technique, that's for sure. 15. C. Additional help we are getting from the higher planes. Apparently the amount of assistance we are getting with higher consciousness has increased enormously, evidenced by a large expansion in the number of higher consciousness organizations, books and individuals opening up. An example is from the Pleiades, a star constellation. This is the energy behind luminescence. I still get a little guidance from the Pleiadian being Dayton, but it is hard to hear sometimes. Brian would not allow me to do any meditations when I was with him. He was adamantly against any higher consciousness practices, almost like a fury at them. One of the reasons for this is explained in Section 4. Here is what Etish said. Q. What is this anti-enlightenment program all about? E. So you don't go any place, to the higher planes. You'll try and get us out of there, the Akashic records where we've got a stronghold. You'll prevent us tweaking your karma and more. Besides, once you're there, higher planes, we can't touch you. It's a lot harder. Q. Higher consciousness energy? E. They're sending you more than they would do otherwise and we hate their guts. Q. Who? E. Beings do it, some are in the Pleiades 15. D. There is a reptilian implant that detects people of a high vibration. 53. I have not found this information anywhere else. Basically all reptilians except those taking over higher consciousness organizations have an implant, and it is the reptilian spirit that has this. This implant causes an extremely unpleasant sensation to that reptilian when near a person above a certain high vibration. Brian has admitted he has this and talked about looking for people who would set him off, as he termed it. He even worried that I may do this to him in the future if I continued with luminescence. This is the possibly reason why he would not allow me to do any spiritual work at all. Here is how I discovered it. It was 2 weeks after discovering who Brian was and I was shocked and recuperating at my parents' home. There was something with me. I wondered at first if it was a residual of the weapon Brian had used on me. There was a heavy, horrible presence around me. It's hard for me to describe, but it was certainly not me. There was a Darth Vader-ness about it. In myself I had no harmful thoughts towards anyone, but something was there affecting me. I remember clearly viewing a swimming pool full of people and my view of them shifted and I saw them as dumb, like a herd of cattle for slaughter, and I didn't care for them. I despised them. They weren't fit for this earth. Never have I felt this way about people nor since. I know this is how Brian sees people and that his reptilian spirit was with me. Something extraordinary happened at that time. I was looking to make sense of what I was experiencing and I attempted to see a healer. I never got to see the healer because the following occurred. I was approaching his healing rooms when something began to happen that I will try and explain as best I can. It was like I was in a James Bond film, the early ones, right in the middle of the red alert scene at the end of the film when sirens are going off, there are explosions and so forth. It felt like I was in a state of emergency. I had to leave, get away from the healer. This was happening to me. Hard as it may seem, I actually really disliked the healer and there was a feeling that wasn't mine, a fear of this healer and a desire to harm them. It was as thought he was doing this to me. I was in a lot of distress. I couldn't even walk in the shop and had to not attend. Now let me tell you a second time shortly afterwards. I decided to have a consultation with a clairvoyant to see if he could shed light on my original experiences. I got to the stage of making an appointment on the phone and again I had the same experience as with the healer. I had to send my parents in for me. Again the clairvoyant felt like my enemy. Alongside this there was the same Darth Vader presence with me. I felt like the devil incarnate. This was not me but Brian's reptilian being. I was experiencing his implant. He has told me that all those working in his organization have these implants with the exception of those infiltrating spiritual organizations. 15. E. Their prison. Involving a net to trap the spirits of high vibration people. I have this net and am destined for their prison. I have clearly seen what it is like in this prison and it is a hell beyond anything you could imagine. I have evidence for the connections they use and I am gaining more and more evidence and information whilst I have this connection. I really want them to disconnect me. It makes sense for everybody and it will be out of my mind. It has all been brought about by the reptilian entity, Etish, connected to me and lying to Brian. This is how he did it. I am not a higher consciousness worker. I am interested in this area but as a sideline. I'm not their criteria and I certainly didn't set Brian's implant off. But there was Etish who just was nasty and wanted me to be connected to that prison from day one. In fact it happened 2 weeks after I was told who Brian was. Nothing else had been told me at that point. I had stopped doing the meditation course. I was certainly under attack and wouldn't be considering meditating. I was in a state of emergency, running from Brian. However, I had this reptilian entity, as described in Section 6, who was communicating with me and instructing me to fight Brian off with meditation tapes, so he told me that when Brian, that is Brian's reptilian being, was present with me I could fight him off by doing a meditation tape at the same time. Therefore I did this, and at times only instructed by the reptilian. These were quite absurd times. Unfortunately Brian was angered by the 54 arrogance that I could fight him off by meditating, and not only this, it looked like I was very into higher consciousness. It had all been set up by the entity, and Brian was really worked on to add the net. He did this, and this was a very bad mistake. One found out after about 8 months and quite a bit before I had learnt any information, and I kept asking Brian over and over to disconnect me, but he never did, and I certainly had no information whatsoever. He never did because of the lies of the reptilian entity. So now I explain to you more about their system for imprisoning spirits. This is unique information. As I said in the introduction, highly conscious people are unliked by the reptilians. They see what is really going on, they help out, and they help out as spirits as well. They reincarnate back and lead the way, such as becoming spiritual leaders. To prevent these people doing any of this, the reptilians have started a diabolical practice of attaching a net to those they identify. This net traps the spirit upon death to be held in a prison indefinitely. This practice surely is fundamentally wrong, as it destroys the soul. It is interesting that Jesus warned in the Bible. 6 Fear not them which kill the body but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear them which is able to destroy both the soul and body in hell. Matt 10:28. I have this net, and it has been seen by many sources and appears red. I have had an appointment with Stuart Swidler, who has written the book Montauk, The Alien Connection, and who sees auric fields. He identified a web in my energy field going to a satellite. I assume this must be the net he was recruited by the government, who used and enhanced his natural abilities. He confirmed part of my knowledge by saying that yes, my consciousness could be taken when I die. He has written about how his consciousness was taken upon the death of his last life and implanted into a fetus of government choosing. My fate, I know, is not going to be any more lives. This is what Etish has said about this procedure. Yes, we trap people and store them in our vaults that would otherwise have helped out, and then we're going to do them in permanently. Our machine will do it all. It's going to explode their energy so they are no more. Q. What are these vaults? It's like a force field that keeps you static, your being, and it's near our machine, isn't it? It's a hellhole. You'll feel like you're in no man's land, stuck solid. Q. How many are trapped? A lot. We have a reasonable capacity, that's why we need to destroy you quite soon. I don't know when it's going to happen, it isn't just yet. Q. What happens to the person if you release them? They'll be alright, go on their way, won't they? Q. Whom have you got there? Krishnamurti, Gandhi, spiritual leaders that have passed away, and loads more. Q. Did you call Krishnamurti up? We got him. To back this up, I first need to establish that the reptilians have spirit technology. Evidence for this is their 55 abilities to take over a human spirit, as they do when they exist in a human body. I experienced through their astral projection, described earlier, both Brian's reptilian spirit, at the time I did not know what it was, and his human spirit, and yet the reptilian was the one in charge. Mentally it seemed to be the only one there. It seems that they are joined at the mental level, so they can technologically join a human and reptilian spirit. My second evidence is the Dulce underground base worker 4, who described alien-run experiments at the base and stated that they know how to separate the bioplasmic body from the physical body to place an alien entity life force matrix within a human body after removing the soul life force matrix of the human. The life force matrix would, I assume, be the spirit. So it seems they have spirit technology as we have technology at the level of DNA and genes producing genetically modified foods. The spirit technology that they are using, and which has been done to me, involves attaching connections to the chakras and meridians, and in particular the mental body, the energy system of the human spirit. These could be called cords, although they are much stronger than cords. They are fifth-dimensional. Etish has described them as in fact physical, we just can't see them. Energy for them is used as physical. I know from the weapons I have received that they are masters of energy, and I suspect that the net is energetic, and it certainly is very strong, strong enough to hold a spirit. The cords form a permanent net. there are a large number of cords. This net remains with the spirit when the body dies and tightens when the person leaves their body. It hauls the spirit to their machines, and where the spirit is suspended indefinitely, tightened by all the cords in a static state, like Etish describes. There are a million spirits on Earth with this net awaiting this to happen. How can they store so many spirits? I believe that there are hundreds of miles of space below their machines and storages like I have pictured. I have tried removing the central one to my crown with an energy worker who has seen them. It was like the toughest steel, we could not touch it. He also found many smaller cords attached to my energy and identified these cords as alien. He said 33 RD level energy. I at the time had no idea that it was even there nor made any mention of alien involvement. 56 Their prison for human spirits. The reality of this for me is horrendous. As a spirit you are fully conscious and will be as you are now with thoughts, emotions. You will not be able to go to the light as all of us do. I have experienced being a spirit when I almost died after one of Brian's weapons. I felt as I do now as I looked down on my dying body and began to review my life. I and others with these cords will be suspended in a nothingness and forever and fully conscious, desperately wanting to leave but not being able to. It is an absolute hell. There will be sobbing, indescribable loneliness, fury, excruciating pain inside. I will be in a worse position to others as I will have no hope. For others their hope will be maybe at any moment they will be freed. It is like being pushed out of a spaceship and left in space permanently, like in the sci-fi movies. What would be going through your mind? Panic, trying to get out, like a bear that is chained in a small cage for its life and goes mad, exhibiting repeated movements, in such torment. I now have to live with this knowledge, similar to seeing a clairvoyant and being shown your future death, torturous and maybe at any moment. I need to be clear that I have strong intentions to prolong my life as long as I can, so I have less time there. I have seen it in perspective, another 50 years of possible happiness on Earth and then 400 years or more of this torture. Any life is better than dying, that's what I now believe. So I want to prolong my life for as long as I possibly can. How can my ex-boyfriend possibly want this for me? I was in his bed and he knew I was going to this hell and could have removed it. I had the net at this time, but I didn't realize, at any time I could have gone there, and he knew and did nothing. When I found out I told him and pleaded with him, and even then he wouldn't 57 remove them. I believe he gets a point from his organization every time he attaches the net. What a diabolical creep. Even worse is that Brian attached this net to me and then the next day tried to kill me with one of his weapons. It's disgusting. We were still romantically involved. He has no scruples, anything to earn a point. Many of our spiritual leaders are there now, and Etish has named some. Further evidence I have for this net is energy workers have found toxic energy coming through the attachment to my crown and down the meridians, energy lines, of my arms. I had hardly noticed this though. Other evidence I have for the hell I am going to as I meditate by visualizing my life as a book. The ending is now always black lead with a blood-curdling feel to it. Captain Bill Robertson writes about weapons used on highly conscious people by these aliens, and I wonder whether he was being subjected to the toxic energy and such like that can be sent down these attachments. He would certainly have been of a high enough vibration. The rogue reptilian has also told me that the net can cause harm to those of a high vibration in their current life as follows: he will come down on you like a ton of bricks, if we choose to. This was said as a possibility for the future. These nets are attached to their machines. Etish explains it as follows: our machine is really incredible. It's programmed to respond to things, it can sense energy. If you become too high or enlightened, then it will start fucking you up. It will send you shit via the cord and then it brings you down and then it stops as long as you don't creep up again, keeps you checked, and it rises and falls. They get the crap, feel like shit, and then it brings them down. It stops, they rise again, and it starts again. Every few days they get it. In my case, Brian has set the machine extra low, so I am more likely to be harmed through the attachments. It isn't that high, not with you. To stop you rising up, Brian dropped the stakes. The machine hasn't noticed a thing. We normally don't set it as low as we did with you. It is so really low with you, you're bound to get it at some point in your life. They don't know what he's done, they don't know he has set it so low. He adjusts the machine. This procedure they are doing on us to those of a high vibration. He told me that Brian is actively seeking out therapists, as they are more likely to be enlightened or near that level in order to attach them, but he tells me that Brian has done these attachments to another recently, a Spanish healer, well known in the area amongst the Spanish, a lady in her 50s who lives just outside Marbella. I do not know her name. Brian saw her for his back complaint in August 2003 and she may now be physically ill. 15. F. How the Reptilians locate people and attach the net. I have not found information on this anywhere else. Firstly, how they locate. The Reptilian hosts do the locating via town planning. They have access to roads and house numbers. They use telephone directories and the internet. They do not use maps showing countryside, hills, and do not use such things as ordnance survey maps in England. I had months and months of being on the run from Brian. He has been able to use the reptilian entity attached to me to feed him information on road names and house numbers where I am staying. I have managed to avoid the reptilian being catching me now by keeping hidden my address. Reptilians have extremely good memories and get to know addresses. This gets fed back to Brian and I have to move on. I have developed a sixth sense to any reptilian's knowledge of my whereabouts, which has been extremely helpful and is the reason that I am still alive. I have found it better to stay at no specific house address such 58 as in a campervan, camping in the countryside or staying within a large complex so my room cannot be located, or in a community countries that do not sign their roads clearly and use a foreign language and alphabet makes it easier to stay in a house. I had used this to remain safer. It was before I knew this that I had several visitations from Brain's reptilian being. The only way they can attach the net is by the presence of the reptilian spirit which travels to the person's location. So they have to know where the person is first. The reptilian works in their energy field and it takes some time. They should realize this is going on, sensations above their head. His presence is quite energizing and may not be unpleasant at all. Remember, their energy is of a high vibration. The most likely time is at night, 2-3.00 am. The person should leave as soon as they suspect their presence. A car may work, but disguising mentally where they are going, they pick up our thoughts. I managed to escape on one occasion by pretending I was staying put and then leaving. Placing rubber over the head is also a good idea, they can't attach through rubber. 15. G. A planned force field to trap us on the planet. The reptilians wish to erect a force field around the Earth. This has also been called a frequency fence by the Nibiruan Council. The purpose of this force field is to act as a barrier to us. We will not be able to ascend from Earth to higher realms. Our purpose is to ascend, and we do this by raising our consciousness. They plan to have this in place within the next 20 years. I have found confirmation of this from the Nibiruan Council, who offer a way through this force field/frequency fence, and I wonder if it works. Here are Etish's admissions. Q. What else are you doing? E. We're sealing off this planet so none of you can leave. It's a force field sort of thing. You'll be all trapped, no way out, and we'll grab you in the process. No one will get to the other side, the higher consciousness plane. Q. When? E. About 20-odd years. Enlightenment isn't going to help you then, you'll just be stuck here forever and a day until we do you in 15. H. A reptilian secret given away by Etish on a planned force field. A secret concerning the force field and an alien race who want to prevent it has been passed on by Etish to the spirit realm. What he told them was that the reptilians are breaking an agreement they have made with a helpful alien race concerning the force field. I was aware of an exchange of information going on between Etish and the entity Mary from John of God. Etish was giving away to Mary more and more information on this subject in exchange for help for himself. He spilled the bean on this. He was held and was squealing so that he wasn't held for any longer and that he could be in power. Here is what Etish said. E. They are trying to prevent us doing it, aren't they? Greatly, he means the force field. Q. How are they preventing it? 59E, they're negotiating with us, they want us to hold off and they'll leave us be. They are there for you and wish you realized it. You talk about them badly, they're getting slapped in the face for doing their bit for you. Q. Will it work? E. We're not going to give it up, no way, they'll just have to keep on at us, won't they, the suckers? Q. Why are they suckers? E. Because we are never going to give it up, but we're making out we may do, so they're holding fire while we consider, but we know the outcome. Q. So what's going to happen? E. We're going to restart it because right now we are doing nothing because we've agreed, kind of thing, but then we're going to restart when they leave because that's what they'd said they'd do. Q. How long on hold for? E. It's been a while, we would have completed it by now if it wasn't for them. Q. You said it would be put up in 20 years, why? E. Because that's when we expect to restart it. Q. What about them? E. Well, we'll restart it anyway, we just need them to lay off right now because we've got other agendas. Q. Like what? E. Like mucking you lot up karmically, they're letting us do it right now anyway, they've got to compromise, haven't they? Q. Why is that so important to you? E. Because less of you will come here anyway, and perhaps that's better than having them in our back once we've mucked you all up again, interfering greatly with all your karma, then we'll think we'll restart. Q. So you're fooling these aliens? E. Basically, yes, they're letting us do per usual, but we're doing far more. The Akashic records are under siege, we're in there and so are they, and a few of you lot too, and they're letting us in so we don't put the energy field in place, but little do they know that we've got our hearts set on that field and we are not going to stop. Q. Whereabouts are you working on the energy field? E. We're experimenting, we know how to do it. Q. Are you producing it in your spacecrafts? 60. No, we're not doing it in our space stations because we're not allowed to, we've got it on the go somewhere else. Q. On the Earth? E. Yes, it's on the Earth, but it isn't near them, they've got no idea. Q. You're working on this on Earth? E. Yes, we've got labs, but it isn't the force field we are working on, it's the machines to work it. Q. So you're developing these force field machines on Earth? E. Yes, that's it. In America, it's top secret, one of those places, so they haven't got a clue. Q. Is it NASA? E. Yes, it is in NASA, the space places, we're developing them right under their noses. Q. What do you say to the people working on them? E. We tell our workers that they are space equipment. Q. What do you tell them about the force field? E. They think it is some way of holding other beings in place. Q. What beings? E. The reptilians, they know there are reptilians, the NASA people, and we tell them this is for them, we're not the reptilians. It's like a hoax, we're making out we're not them because they know they're bad. Q. How? E. Because they were attacked by them, some of their spaceships have run into reptilian places and been destroyed because we don't want them looking into us, so it's all for the reptilians. Q. What NASA bases? E. We've got it going in a few places in America, sometimes it's NASA, sometimes it's not. There is one in New Mexico, I questioned him on where else and he said the following places, however he was reluctant to tell me and I had no definite answer. I cannot therefore be certain of their validity. He said yes to Houston, Texas and North Carolina, and no to Cape Canaveral, Florida, and no to Los Alamos. I now believe it may be Dulce Underground Base. 15. Etish gives away a reptilian secret away on Karma. A timeline tragedy, our Akashic records one are being stolen. A secret for over 300 years was exposed by Etish in order to prevent himself being continuously held and for his own support by the spirit realm. He actually passed this secret on to the spirit realm very 61 recently. I was not telling anybody and he is the one that spilled the beans. It is unbelievable that a reptilian would squeal like this, but as he was basically ousted from the organization and from Brian, he was working for himself entirely and anything that would get himself favors. I had no intentions of telling the spirit realm, but Etish had other ideas for himself if he could get himself favored by them and would tell them. Very crafty to get the spirit realm thinking he is great. I had been forced into doing the hard work but had no intentions of telling the spirit realm. I was definitely going to keep it to myself, and there Etish was freely given away this secret as bribery to have the spirit realm do as he wanted. Here is how Etish exposed how they cause karma. A few hundred years ago we deleted certain past lives from your consciousness so that you have to pay back more karma than you should. Q. Give me an example. E. A man was an arsonist and then we erase the fact that he got burnt and as a result his subconscious believes that he needs to get burnt again and puts him through burning again in order to experience what he did to someone, payback. Everyone gets this but only those who were here some time back because we did it in one fell swoop. I think this is about 300 years ago. We do it now and again to certain people we don't want here, like new ones. The next time they will do it will be within the next 18 years. Q. Where do you erase past lives? E. In the astral plane, there's a team overseeing it. Q. Why do you do it? E. To keep you down, you are not going anywhere like the astral plane and higher consciousness, you're more likely to get harmed by us and you are not going to get enlightened, it keeps everybody in a bit of a terrible state and then we can control people better. High beings that come here to help, we implant axe murderer type lives to these people if we catch them so they can't help out, they're in no fit state. Q. How do you catch them? E. We have a gatekeeper, he sees them coming. Brian had actually told me that he had erased past lives from my record in the last 3 years. So I asked Etish this. Q. Why did Brian erase the crippling disease from my past lives? E. Because of his back. He wanted you to suffer because you really annoy him off the way you didn't care about it. Q. He doesn't explain, how am I supposed to know whether he is in pain or not? I asked about the reincarnation of aliens. Q. What did you do to that person you told me about, the alien? E. We did a bit more with him because we don't want his type around, a great deal to him. We 62 put a few past lives in that aren't him but he thinks they are. He was a rapist, an axe murderer. He thinks he has been one he really mucked up last lifetime. He thinks he did, a child abuser. It wasn't him, it was some other man. We duplicate past lives, he's still got it. His last life was on another planet and he had a good life and he came down to Earth to do a bit more for himself and we mucked his karma up greatly. We kind of made them, implanted past lives, more prominent. We put them in his brain. They are not normally in your brain. They are normally in an altered consciousness state but with him they are in his mind and we have kind of fogged them over. This karma secret being uncovered has all been totally caused by Etish. He had previously observed everything and allowed it, he just doesn't care about his organization. I then went and investigated it further because I was so frustrated from being stopped from doing alternative auditing. This deals with past lives. The connection of Etish meant I couldn't do it. I knew this would sort out all the harm done to my past lives which has caused karma. I had even been told by the Reptilians to do auditing which I was really grateful for and in no way was wanting to expose what was told. My karma is still here, no auditing have I been allowed to do by that awful rogue Reptilian. I told Etish just let me do alternative auditing and I will stop investigating my timeline. He didn't budge. I would say again, I'm finding more out. I will stop if you let me do auditing and no he wouldn't, he kept stopping me doing it. So I kept investigating. So Etish has filled the bins with what you read below. He is totally responsible. I have also to put part of the responsibility on the being behind an organization called Luminescence. The being's name is Daban and he told me very importantly that the karma was done on a big scale, it wasn't just me and that's all I thought it was. He also told me about my friend Jillian also having karma caused by reptilians and gave away information on it and he wanted me to tell Archangel Michael via a channel. I didn't care for Archangel Michael and was certainly not going to tell him and I wasn't in any communication with him either. My lips were firmly sealed on this one, I just wanted to have some auditing. This is part of a reptilian anti-higher consciousness program taking place on Earth. They are interfering with our Akashic record which is where the records of all our lives are stored with devastating consequences. As a result they cause added karma and prevent us ascending. They cause reincarnation to occur far more than it should, and hold suffering for those it's done to. Consciousness is reduced and spiritual lessons lost. It's about stealing lives from our timeline, stealing lives that we then have to repeat, lives that no one should want to do ever again. Unfortunately it is currently working for no one knows other than what you read here. This is the first time it has been written about, Very interesting, isn't it? This was also unknown to the spirit realm, including the karmic board, until Etish squealed. Nobody knew it all except of course the reptilians. Oblivion reigned. It was done originally in the 1600s and they plan it again within the next 18 years. Thousands and thousands of people will have it done too. They do it to higher consciousness organizations including religions. I don't quite know who they've done it to. They also do it to their own targets, good people. And I am not a target and it has been done to me. So what I had to do whilst Etish kept connected to me was have my Akashic record investigated. As a result, my findings are described below. They actually removed lives and it was discovered during this time our life was in India in a religion. This is how I found they do it and get away with it. During the time that Etish was held and connected, I had an Akashic record consultant investigate my record, and she found lives were out of place. A large amount of evidence was discovered but no conclusions reached. Like a book where pages had been removed, much was found but no conclusions reached. The Berkeley Psychic Institute had a look and found it had been raided. So we found that they remove only a few past lives from a timeline and the Akashic record, as was the case for me. Timelines go back thousands of years and they chose a time which is sufficiently far back that it's not recent and we don't realize. One life is chosen of great harm to others and then only a few of the lives where you paid it back are taken, so it's not really that noticeable. This is why it's still not known. In my case they chose a 563 where I was an army commander overseeing a conquered people who I was responsible for their punishment. I harmed a lot of people. It was chosen for that reason. We found at least 2 lives in the time immediately following this life. One of these was a life in prison. I died there, I think, just as I had put others in prison. This is how it works. The other life I don't know. They do it very craftily so that so far it has gone unnoticed, but what we saw is a scarcity of lives following the commander life. Normally after a life where a great deal of harm is done there will be many lives of harm to you, and in that many they take a couple out and that's how they do it. The timelines they choose would contain thousands of lives. Why is this so harmful? Erasing traumatic lives you would think is a good thing, but what is actually happening is stealing of you hard-earned lives of karmic payback. You now appear to the karmic administrator with added karma, which will be a disaster for you. You'll be told to reincarnate and balance out what you've done. The fact that you have already balanced it is missing, you may know. It's about experiencing what you did to others again, and my example is my prison life was removed, so I experienced a similar life again of being in a paralyzed body. A life in prison is similar, I suppose. Now karma is paid back twice, reptilian twice. This is worse than is possible to describe in words. To not have to reincarnate and then to be told you do is devastating, for the life you have to live is not a good one. This stops enlightenment, just what the reptilians want. I, for instance, have lost my spiritual lesson of learning to love people. I am working hard at this right now. They have even gone so far as to hold off a force field, a frequency fence, in order to continue removing lives from the Akashic record as described under the aliens that are helping us. For me, time and time again, past life regressions, including a television regression therapist, have shown the cause of the main problem in my life, mistreatment, to be a life 4,500 years ago, the commander life. I am paying back karma for this life, and a large amount too. This makes no sense to anyone knowledgeable on the subject of karma. It's too long ago and it struck me as so unfair. I carry a lot of guilt now for harming those people in that life, but they have all forgiven me and ages ago. I have proved this with forgiveness sessions under hypnosis. So why am I still so guilty? This because of being stopped from doing alternative auditing. I wanted to know, and when exactly had that guilt been refreshed from 4,500 years ago? Because it was the guilt that allowed the mistreatment. So I saw a Michael Newton trained in between life regression therapist. I found that the guilt had first be refreshed after the life I had as an Indian religious man. It was in the 1600s. In that life I meditated all day, my energy was radiant, I was serene and loved everybody. I died with a smile on my face knowing I was going to be enlightened. But after death I was devastated to be shown images of what I had in that ancient commander life, and that was when I was made guilty again. I was told I had much karma to pay back from that very life. I was miserable as a spirit, in disbelief. I knew I had no karma and here they were saying I did. I had no choice but to accept it and chose to pay the karma back as quickly as I could. What happened to me next is as follows. After highly conscious Indian religious man 1. Paralyzed life 2 life of terror 3 abused and killed as a child 4. Current life see how effective tampering with the timeline is. 64 This sequence of lives is in itself is evidence, to have such a high karmic debt lives in succession after a life of complete spiritual devotion and achievement at an old soul age is most unusual. What Etish had said was being proved word for word. 300 years ago he'd said they'd erased past lives and that Indian life was 300 years ago so they did it when I was in that life. That poor Indian man, I feel desperately sorry for him, although of course he is me. He had no karma or so little it would not have meant reincarnating. Next, still being stopped from doing alternative auditing, I wanted to see what exactly had caused this tragedy. I did past life regressions and asked to see erased past lives. It was quite startling. I saw a past life regression therapist. This was not to be a full regression, just an image of who I was. I regressed along the timeline and strangely I was shown swirling black masses and light grey masses. These were my lives, but why like this? I dipped into a black life and I saw myself as a gargoyle-like face. It had yellow eyes and ridged grotesque face. It was as clear as a bell and very startling, and there was a horrible sensation along with it. It took me several days to get over this one, that this alien was in my Akashic record was abhorrent. I later found out from Brian that this was a reptilian that he had implanted to make me not want to harm the reptilian cause. Following on from that life I continued down the timeline and dipped into another black life. Now I saw myself as an old woman who looked like a witch, an unpleasant one. Brian later admitted that he had implanted this woman's life as mine to draw unpleasant things to me that he can do. Continuing on, I viewed a grey life. It was most unusual. I saw myself as a sketch drawing but moving. All there was the outline of myself as a person. It was like I had been rubbed out. I was on all fours in a prison crawling to be sick. The reptilian entity later told me that this was a life that his organization had erased hundreds of years ago and I had been in prison and died there, paying back my karma. I was now having to pay this karma again. I began at that time to put 2 and 2 together. Black swirls equals lives when I am unpleasant and are implanted. This creates more karma for me in subsequent lives. Grey lives equals lives when I am having a very hard time and had been erased, has created more karma as I have to go through it again. I did further past life regressions to find erased past lives. I was shown an empty house when I asked to see the cripple life that Brian had erased. It was not there. I was shown a wasteland stripped of everything time and again when I asked to see lives erased in the 1600s. Then faintly different lives came through, one when I was in prison, one where I was in stocks and one where I was physically harmed by others. So with investigations of my Akashic record by others including experts in Akashic records, past life therapists, I have concluded that the reptilians are erasing lives from our Akashic records. The Karmic Board now know, thanks to Etish 15. J. Implants to reduce consciousness. They have implanted us all a long time ago so we would not raise our consciousness. This way our planet remained open to them for their return. Here is what Etish said. They were put in some time back. Scientology gets rid of them, they bring you down, a few implants and they drop your consciousness down. OT levels in Scientology get rid of these implants layer by layer. We did it because we wanted the place. When we first checked it over, it's on your brainwaves. Brian hasn't got them, they were taken away. Q. When were they put in? 65e, a millennium ago, way before Christ, right at the beginning. If we'd never come here you'd all be really amazing. They suppress you down so you're more physical, you lose sight of things. 16. Crop circles are old ones are alien spacecrafts, the new ones fabrications. Some are real, some they now fabricate and expose these fabrications for disinformation. Etish says, Q. Crop circles, they're spaceships, aren't they, Grace? We use it a bit, we fabricate them so none of you believe, we put fakes in and then expose it to put you off the scent. But some of them are real, the old ones are real. But the new ones are not, well some are but not many. 16. A. The Roswell incident. All alien information they cover up so we will not believe it possible that an alien race is taking over the planet. This is what Etish said. E. Small ones, we are not at war with them or anything, it's none of their business, we slaughter them if we can. They are pretty quick on the draw, nippy bastards, and they can defend themselves. They want us to leave. Roswell, it was them all right, we crucified them. We nip things in the bud, anything like that, but we were a bit slow that time. All alien encounters we cover up if we can so you don't know we are around, otherwise you might put 2 and 2 together. 17. A main alien race reincarnating here. The main abduction alien group is the insectoids, and they reincarnate here also as people and help mankind mainly through higher consciousness and the environment. They have hybrids already and would like to coexist with us, but will settle for coexisting with the reptilian hybrids, as the reptilians have made it impossible for coexisting with mankind. Although not in the text here, I have been told by Etish and another non-reptilian source that Prince Charles is a reincarnation of an insectoid. Conversations with Etish. Q. What about the aliens in the abduction books? E. Their planet has been wrecked like ours, they have already got a cross of them and you. They have been experimenting and they have got a crossbreed that is hideous. Insectoids. E. We haven't got a crossbreed yet, we're working on it. Q. They use humans to experiment on? E. A great deal, they are not great, they hijack people like we do, using them for their own experiments. I have been told that they usually do it to humans who were one of them, and 66 agreement has been reached. E. They are not here to harm you. We don't mind them, if they want to do it they can as long as they don't interfere with us. Q. Why? E. Because they've got weapons, so we've got no choice. People get abducted by them and it is for experimentation. They are good beings and would help if they were with you, and they reincarnate as some humans and help mankind if they are able to. They know that someday humans will not be around and that's when they will do it. They be peaceful enough, they just need a place to live. Q. What do they need to learn? E. Emotional stuff, isn't it? And a lot of them have a hard time getting to grips with it, like Brian and the rest when they first come here. E. They have got their crossbreed stored until the time comes. We haven't got a crossbreed yet, we're working on it. They're good when they are here but they aren't often here, we see to that. They're into the environment and help out that way once they've sorted themselves out. Q. What's sorted? E. Their emotions. One life can do it and they can reincarnate again and help you lot out. Q. How do they do that? E. They help keep the planet green and more besides higher consciousness / enlightenment and that kind of thing. 18. The alien race known as the Nordics. Etish describes their exact physical appearance, how they are the ancestors of the Scandinavians, how the ape man is deliberately promoted in order to minimize our belief in aliens. Humans with blonde hair are ancestors of the blonde aliens, the Nordics. They settled in the Scandinavian countries, are high-loving beings. He describes their appearance. Genetic scientists who know that blonde humans can't have evolved from apes are hushed up and the ape man theory promoted so that we don't believe in aliens and therefore reptilians. These aliens are the ancestors of the Swedish blondes, and anyone with blonde hair is a result of interbreeding between the blonde aliens and cavemen or a different dark race. In fact, we all have some genes from the Nordics. They promote the ape man theory so we do not believe in aliens and therefore the reptilians are less believable. Scientists are suppressed. Etish's conversations. Q. What did the Swedish etc. evolve from? E. The white-haired lot. Pale blue eyes, very thin, really tall, about 8 feet, amazingly attractive, aliens who can breathe here. They are humanoid almost like the rest of us and they bred with the cavemen and the result is what you've got now. They're gorgeous, beautiful people. Hi. They 67 like to explore different territories. They come here other ways, reincarnate here as a standard human and help you out. They are not here anymore. They had white hair, no color at all. They had pigment in their skin, fine hair. They landed in the cold climate because there was less ape man there who were a tad aggressive, but they mixed in the end. Now you have hybrids, brown haired. They've got everything a human has, they just look different. Faces, hardly any nose, it really wasn't there. Fine features, they come down now and again in their spaceships even though they are not meant to. We rip them apart if we find them, we don't want them looking around. They've arrived and they'd like to see you and communicate with you, but we don't let them. They're really nice and you should talk to them, and they are not into monogamy. Q. Did the blonde people evolve from apes? E. A load of rubbish. We helped the ape man theory along, because we don't want you knowing about aliens, because we are more believable then, aren't we? Maybe you'll put 2 and 2 together. If other aliens are here, then perhaps we are the ones fucking you up. Scientists, we hush them up. Genetic scientists, no, blondes can't come from apes. Course they do, we ridicule them if we can. All alien encounters we cover up if we can, so you don't know we are around, otherwise you might put 2 and 2 together. 19. Rigging of juries. They are the judge and the jury for those who they frame. A reptilian host will sit on juries more than usual, a way to identify them. Here is what Etish said. E. We rig juries, don't we, for those who have been framed. We frame them and then rig the jury. Brian has been on jury duty 3 times. That's one of his roles, isn't it? Jury duty. Q. How many of you on a jury? E. At least half of that jury is going to be us. Anyone that does frequent jury service more than once is probable that they are one of us. We could frame you at customs, and plant something, fine possession on you, or other ways. Q. If I was framed, what could I do about it? E. Demand the jury get changed before the trial. Say the mob has got to them and you want them repicked by an upstanding member of the community. Organize by your lawyer and watch the judge, and that judge may be one of us too, and they usually are, but if the jury is good it may not matter. So if the judge turns you down, then request another judge, but one you choose or go to. Don't know how you will do that. Get the jury handpicked, overseen by someone you trust. Q. Is it in the law? E. No, it isn't in the law to do it, but you could go to a judge and say you were framed and you think the mob has got to your jury and you want a new one. The jury has been picked and then you request another one. Q. When? 68E. A few days before the trial. Q. Why a few days? E. Well, I don't know, a week or a few days before the trial. A lot of us are judges. 20. The royal family. Etish talks here about Prince Charles and how they are making him unpopular in order for him not to be king. They don't bad press their own. This is what he says. E. Princess Anne is a one of us, Prince William is one of us, or soon will be. Prince Charles we don't want to harm, but he can't be king because we need Prince William there. We don't make him popular, but he's an alright man. We give him bad press. Prince Anne loves him and she won't have it. She won't have us kill him, but she wants him dethroned. Prince Charles is really high. Prince Charles would do a really good job if he was king, I'll tell you that now. He'd bring peace, he'd get you more conscious, he'd help the environment, support good causes. Course he should be king, it's us, isn't it? Prince Charles is a very loving, peaceful man and he'd do all of you a world of good. The man who interviewed Diana is one of us. Yes, the black man, we made sure of that, so she'd put down Prince Charles. Q. It was broadcast. E. That was us, so you'd all hate Prince Charles's guts, poor man. We'd kill him if we could, but Princess Anne loves him and won't allow it. 21. News topics. 21. A. Princess Diana's death. Etish talks here about the Princess Diana's order to appease Prince William. He talks about it being arranged by Al Fate. Here is our conversations. Q. Did you kill Princess Diana? E. It wasn't us, Dodi Al Fade, who we hate. We killed Dodi Al Fade. E. We got those two together, that's for sure. We got them introduced. Dodi knew too much. Q. What about? E. His father. We crashed the car, didn't we? Q. Why? E. Because we wanted old Dodi dead. Q. What about Diana? Death has been made to look as though Dodi was the target in so-called enemy, Tiny Rowlands. 69. Well, her too, but it was just a sideline. It was Dodi, wasn't it? He found out a few things about his father, corrupt dealings. We support Al Fate, he does things for us. One of his co-workers is a reptilian. We are in alliance with Al Fate, someone close by. The man that rigged Dodi's death is Al Fayed's co-worker, but you all think he isn't his friend. They are not best friends, or so everybody believes. It is nothing to do with Harrods, he's one of us and he is behind it, he's in the news. Q. Tiny Rowlands? I'm not saying, we couldn't kill her off because Prince William wouldn't let us. This may be a future viewpoint, it's tricky with family members. Q. But you killed her anyway? She just happened to be in the car so it was alright, it wasn't her fault and then Prince William is alright about it. Q. But you wanted her dead. Yes we really did, but we couldn't do it. It was because she was anti-war, main reason. We were after Dodie and sort of managed to kill her too. Q. Prince William thinks it an accident? He is pretty upset and he hates someone a lot, the person who did it, but he isn't letting on. 21. B. September 11th. Etish only told me a little about this, I presume because it was headline news then and I could have gone to the papers. Yes we're responsible. Q. Why? So you'd all want us to go to war with Iraq and a bit of scare tactics as well. We made sure all of our own weren't there, near the building. 21. C. Wars, they create wars. It's not about the money, it's about getting into power and a bit more besides, keep the masses down and poor, we create wars so we can take control. Countries that we don't have, will start having wars so we can take control. We create wars because we have to. We'd rather not have them because they wreck the environment and they cost an arm and a leg. Wars help us get in power, the army, we're the army. 21. D. BSCE, we're not responsible for mad cows, we're responsible for BSC, wasn't necessary to slaughter all those animals. 22. Education is 100% controlled, it is designed to brainwash us. Our questioning mind is eradicated and we educated into a stupor. They control education. Think back to how schooling used to be in the Middle Ages. They taught the basics only, reading, writing and arithmetic, the rest was up to you. They had a few early years of school and that was all. Etish explains how unnecessary most of it now is. They control education. They reduce grammar so our writing skills are poor, force us to study subjects that are unnecessary. They take away our power of choice and our free thinking. We should only study if we are interested. They take away our free will by forcing us to study subjects. Mind control starts here. Here is what Etish said. Education, one of the main things we are into behind the scenes. The Minister of Education, whoever that was in 2003, is one, they all are. We make the rules, we dish it out. We're on the board of directors in top universities, and we write the national curriculum, we swamp you with it as much as we can get away with. Q. Why? To control your minds, we don't want you thinking about other things. Q. Why do I have difficulty writing compositions? Because we marked you up at school, we don't like any English, we'd rather you didn't do it, so you can read and write poorly, can't put pen to paper, can't complain, inhibited with it, don't want to write because you think it will not sound right, so you don't read as well. We want you all in the doghouse. We don't mind. We encourage storybooks because they're a waste of you time. We don't mind creative writing, but you should be learning to read and write properly, not pussyfooting around with Shakespeare because you don't need it. It adds interest value, that is all. We keep English grammar to the bare minimum so you're all inhibited, you don't enjoy it. It's a pain and a chore and you get less far with working out what's going on. You can't inquire. English grammar is in the curriculum, but it should be the main subject along with a few other things we've missed. Q. How should education really be? They used to teach kids in medieval times to read and write and that's all you need, the rest you can learn other ways. Numbers, a bit of maths, maybe a language or two, the rest they can learn if they are interested. For example, geography, you learn what you want to learn and not what's forced on you. Q. When I have a child, where would you recommend I send it? To an alternative school, Rudolf Steiner is better, or keep them at home and teach them yourself. If it shows interest in academic things, then look at sending it somewhere where it can get normal qualifications so it can get the job it wants. 23. Control of the media. Physical is all important. They teach us to rather be happy having a new car than be happy playing the real game here, which is raising our consciousness and having a happy, fulfilling life. Etish says, we control the media. We give you TV and it isn't what you need. We feed you sex. We give you mass media, feed you consumer stuff, but it isn't what you need. G. New car. We make you 71 think that the be-all and end-all is everything you can see and touch. 24. Changing art. In fact, they are anti-art and reward their own artists. Etish says, we hate art and we try and do what we can to curtail it. We're on the boards, one of us is an artist, a European, and his stuff is crap and we promote it. He's anti-art, he's very well known. QI. Art makes you feel better, doesn't it? It raises your consciousness and we want you to stay as you are and not get up the ladder. You should have art around you. 25. Suppression of architecture. Square buildings are promoted over circular designs in order to suppress us. Circular is better for us and we would feel better in a circular building. Circular also helps raise our consciousness. In the past, before their control in this area, there were many more circular buildings. Here is what Etish said, in the past there used to be all sorts of circular architecture. Turrets, domes, spirals, and we've put a stop to that because circular buildings enhance your energy. We design our own stuff and make it low energy, square, that's it, ugly if we can get away with it, basically not circular because then you'll be raising your consciousness easier. Q, who are the architects? We're in there a great deal, making sure all the circular stuff or curves gets thrown out the window. Q, what type of house should I have? As circular as you can get it, wood, high ceilings, have a dome in your place in the central room. Brick isn't good for no one, it marks you up, pushes you inwards, into the space you're in. We teach architecture and only fund certain projects. We teach square. Q, what about the Millennium Dome, in London? That was our doing, we need that for our group meetings, no end of good that will do us, but we are not sure we can use it. We're working on that one. Epilogue. A universal law working for us. The reptilians are working against the natural laws on Earth. The laws make it harder for them to achieve their objectives. They have to effort. We have the laws for our good and we could make more use of them. One of these laws is the law of creation, which states that things on Earth will expand or contract and not 72 remain the same. We are expanding and the reptilians want us to contract or remain as we are now. They have to use effort against us to achieve this. We have to use less effort to expand, except that we have to fight against their efforts to make us contract. Here is another universal law: we are cause over ourself and our possessions. This means it is no effort at all to produce effect on ourselves, such as we want to change our house to improve it. This is easy if we own it. If we rent, then even if the landlord has given us his permission, he is still cause over his house and will make it harder for us to change it to our liking. The reptilians are trying to control us, what we do, what we have, and this is not easy for them. They are not cause over us and what we have. They have to exert outside efforts to be cause, to control us. It is a constant effort on their part. We could regain control over ourselves easily. It is our right and the laws help it on its way. So all we need to do is start wanting to be the one in control and it will begin. We need to know what it is we truly desire and desire it more, and this will draw it to us, never mind what the reptilians want for us. About the author: Susan Reed is a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition and has worked for 18 years as a nutritionist and hospital dietitian. She worked in nutritional research for several years. She became interested in higher consciousness and spent 4 years in an enlightenment and study course. She then met a man named Brian, who revealed himself to be a reptilian host. This catapulted her into the secret reptilian involvement on the planet. The end. Thank you for listening. To learn more about reptilians, here are some references. 1. Books of Enoch. The Old Testament. TGS Publishing, Frankston, Texas PH 903-876-32562. Captain Bill Robertson. Sector 9. Astar, CBR, www.freezone.org. 3. Andrew Hennessy. Monkeys of Eden, the Telepathic Overlords and the Slaves of Earth, www.whale.to. Weblink/monkeys. HTML4. Branton, The Dulce Wars Whale. To Weblink BHTML. Global Communications. Available through hiddenmysteries.com. Penthouse 903-876-32565. Angelica Tapestro. The Universal Seduction Volumes 1-3. The Rose Garden. 6. Mark L. Prophet. The Lost Teachings of Jesus, Volume 2. Summit University Press. 7. Stuart Swedlow. Montauk, The Alien Connection. Sky Books, available through hiddenmysteries.com. Penthouse 903-876-32568. www.nibiroanunsel.com. 9. David Icke. Children of the Matrix. Bridge of Love, 2001. Available through hiddenmysteries.com. Penthouse 903-876-32566. 10. David Ashworth, Dancing with the Devil, As You Channel in the Light. Crucible, 2001.